Long ago, before the rise of packs and territory lines, before the laws and wars, there was only the moon and her children. The moon goddess, Selene, watched over the earth with silver eyes. In her solitude, she created the werewolves, not beasts, but guardians of the balance between nature and magic. But she made one fatal mistake. In her desire to see unity and love in their kind, she split one soul between two werewolves, creating the mate bond, a perfect counterpart to each soul. And so it began. Every werewolf born henceforth carried a mystical thread, an invisible tie that would someday lead them to the other half of their soul. This soul bond could empower, heal, and devastate to each. Werewolf, the moon goddess, gave a gift of supernatural ability tied to their spirit and purpose. Some could manipulate shadows, others read thoughts, and some could twist the weather. But only one could create weapons out of thin air. That one was Ares. Ares had been a child of pain. She watched her parents die, torn to pieces by rogue wolves. When she was only 13, the night she awakened her gift, it wasn't the moon that guided her, it was rage. Her first weapon was a blade of light, forged in grief and vengeance. Now 24, she stood as Gamma of the Silver Claw Pack, the third highest rank, and feared as a warrior even among alphas. But none knew her secret. At dawn, before the pack stirred, she left her role as Gamma behind and became a silent executioner. The forest was drenched in mist as Ares crouched beneath a low branch, the morning cold pressing against her exposed arms. She didn't flinch. She could feel the rogue's heartbeat ahead, fast, erratic. He was close. With a smooth gesture, she extended her hand. A spear materialized in her grip, long, silver, the blade tip crackling with quiet energy. The gift answered her call instantly. She moved in silence. The rogue barely turned his head before the spear drove through his chest. He gasped once, then collapsed. No questions, no mercy. Ares yanked the weapon free, and it dissolved into shimmering dust. For this week, she muttered, her breath misting in the air. You're getting sloppy, Ares. She glanced up at the brightening sky. She had to be back before her alpha noticed. By the time she entered Silverclaw territory, her armor had disappeared. She wore a neutral expression and her Gamma crest. The patrol guards nodded in greeting. Gamma Ares, said Tobias. The beta. He stood tall with a clipped beard and a nonsense demeanor. Council meeting at noon, noted. She kept walking. He watched her go, frowning. You look tired. I didn't sleep much. Tobias narrowed his eyes, but said nothing in the distance. The Alpha's residence loomed stone walls and steel gates, traditional but fortified. Ares walked through the doors like a soldier returning from battle. In the north, past the Iron Mountains, lay the Blood Lake Packer, brutal kingdom carved through strength, discipline, and fear. Its alpha, Cain, was a man forged in fire, towering, with charcoal black hair that curled near his nape and sharp storm grey eyes. He was as infamous as he was respected. At 28, Cain had conquered rival packs, ended two rebellions, and survived a dozen assassination attempts, but he had no mate. He had stopped looking years ago. What was the point? Every pack gathering, every festival, every territory border crossed had only reminded him that she wasn't there. I'm too old for dreams, he muttered, staring into the fire in his war room. The hearth crackled behind him, casting shadows. Across the massive stone table, Alpha, said his beta Riker, entering the room. The Silverclaw Pack has sent word. Their Gamma will be attending the regional summit next week. Cain's brows lifted. A gamma attending in place of the beta. Unusual, Riker agreed. Apparently, she's exceptional. Yes, Ares Vane. Cain frowned. The name tugged something unfamiliar in his gut. Vane, that's not a Silverclaw name. She was adopted in, or taken in. There's not much on her background. Cain stood, jaw clenched. Interesting, Riker hesitated. Still no scent. Of your mate, Cain. Cain didn't respond. He simply walked to the window overlooking the lake, its surface red from the iron-rich earth below, always resembling blood. I'm not interested in fate anymore, he said flatly. But if the moon still plays games, let's see what her next move is. The regional summit took place in Moonriver, neutral ground fortified with magic and guarded by elder wolves of every bloodline. Ares arrived in silence, her long silver blonde hair tied in a braid, her shoulders squared in the leather armor of her station. She wasn't here to impress. She was here to listen, watch, and, if necessary, intervene. The meeting hall was circular, with thrones arranged for each pack's leadership. Cain entered last. The room changed the moment he stepped inside. Whispers echoed. Some wolves stood out of instinct, others shrank back, and then their eyes met. Ares froze, her breath caught, her heart skipped, then thundered. Her wolf, dormant and watchful all morning, suddenly growled awake. Mine. Cain, single quotes eyes, darkened. His jaw clenched. He stepped forward slowly, ignoring the stares. Ares, he said, low and controlled. You're the Gamma of Silverclaw. She stood straighter. I am. You're my mate. There was no softness in his tone, just certainty, and a command behind the declaration. The room gasped. Tobias, sitting beside her, rose in protest. That's impossible. I'm not going anywhere with you, Arius snapped, interrupting both men. Mate bond or not. Cain stared at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected resistance, but oh, how it thrilled him. I wasn't asking, he said, voice like a storm. Then maybe you should learn how. She growled back. For a moment, the air cracked between them. Everyone sensed Ithian intensity. The promise of war or passion. Cain turned without another word and took his seat. Riker leaned toward him and whispered, She's different. Cain smirked, She's mine. That night, the summit continued. Under tense silence, Ares sat in her guest quarters, pacing. The mate bond, she'd never believed in it, not truly. She thought she'd been broken, too ruined by blood and grief to ever be bound to someone, and yet the bond thrummed under her skin. Her wolf was restless, whispering Cain's name again and again. A knock came at the door. Tobias entered, his expression hard. You should not have responded to him that way, he said. I don't care if he's an alpha. I'm not property. He's dangerous, Ares. So am I, she said coldly. Tobias hesitated. We've all seen what you do to rogues. She turned sharply. Say it. I've kept your secret, he whispered, because I know why you do it. But if you provoke Cain, it won't be rogues you'll be fighting. I can handle him, she muttered, voice like iron. Tobias didn't argue. He left her alone, the door clicking shut behind him. Elsewhere in the compound, Cain stood on the balcony, staring at the moon. His hands were clenched on the railing. She didn't come willingly, Riker said from behind him. She will, and if she doesn't. Cain turned, eyes glowing faintly silver. I'm not losing her, he said. The moon took everything else from me. She won't take this. Ares stood at the edge of the Moonriver training grounds the next morning, muscles taut, fists clenched at her sides. She had woken before sunrise, unable to sleep with the bond clawing at her insides. It burned a tether that tugged and twisted with every heartbeat. She hated it. She had seen Cain during breakfast. He'd looked directly at her, like he owned her soul. Now she needed to hit something. Tobias, she called, the Silverclaw. Beta turned. Ares, what are you? Train with me, now. He eyed her cautiously. You're not thinking straight. That's why I need to hit something. He sighed, rolled his shoulders, and stepped onto the sparring field. Don't hold back. Ares didn't. Within minutes, she summoned twin daggers of steel-smooth deadly and launched at Tobias. He parried with real blades, fast and controlled, but the ferocity in Ares' attacks left him struggling. She's angry, Riker said from the sidelines, arms crossed as he watched with amusement. Cain stood beside him, his grey eyes unreadable. She's brilliant, Cain murmured, but reckless. Your mate's trying to kill someone, Alpha. That doesn't worry you. No, Cain said. It excites me. Ares disarmed Tobias with a violent twist and kicked him backward into the dust. She turned toward Cain and Riker, panting slightly, enjoying the show. She snapped. Cain didn't blink. If you wanted to spar with someone your level, you should have asked me. Her lips curled. I don't fight men who think I belong to them. He stepped forward slowly, boots crunching gravel beneath him. I don't think you belong to me, Ares. His voice dropped, dark and low. I know you do. Ares threw a dagger. It missed his head by an inch and embedded itself in the tree. Behind him, careful, she said. You don't want to test me. Cain smiled. On the contrary, I think I do. Later that day, the summit resumed behind thick doors and guarded walls. Alphas and betas spoke of territory disputes, rogue activity, trade pacts. But all Ares could feel was Cain's presence across the room, heavy. Electric. Selene cursed this bond. He hadn't tried to speak to her again, but his eyes rarely left her. She could feel his gaze like a hand around her throat. Firm, possessive, patient. Ares, Tobias whispered beside her, you're shaking. I'm not. He leaned closer. Don't let him in. I won't. But inside, her wolf stirred restlessly. Her instincts wanted Cain, wanted to touch him, smell him, mark him. Her mind screamed in protest. When the meeting adjourned, Cain stood, making no move toward her. But as she passed him by, his fingers brushed hers, just a touch, enough to send heat searing up her arm. She recoiled instantly. Don't, he said nothing, but his expression burned with something feral. As she passed, he whispered loud enough for her to hear, you'll come to me, whether you want to or not. That night, Ares sat in her room, trying to breathe through the wildfire in her blood. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The bond was too strong, too loud. There was a knock at her door. Tobias. She called. No, came the voice. Cain. She stared at the door. Her body betrayed her. Her pulse quickened. Her hand reached out. No, she muttered to herself. Not yet. She turned away. Let the bond burn. Cain stood on the other side, fists clenched, jaw tight. He didn't knock again. The following day, the final council meeting convened under the moon's waning light. This was the most dangerous part of the summit. The negotiations. Cain sat like a war god carved from stone, silent, waiting for provocation. Beside him, Riker jotted notes, always watchful. Tobias and Ares stood for silver. Their alpha, Laura's, had remained in their territory. Trusting Tobias to speak with authority, Blood Lake requests border rights along the East Ridge, Riker announced. Tobias frowned. That territory was promised to Pinefang Pack, Cain's. Eyes shifted to Ares. We offer alliance with Silverclaw in exchange. A formal pact. Tobias raised a brow. You want a military alliance? Cain didn't look at Tobias. His eyes were fixed on Ares. Yes, one that includes marriage between Alpha and Gamma. The room exploded in murmurs. Ares stood. Absolutely not. Think carefully, Cain said. This bond won't vanish, but you and your pack might. Without allies, we don't need your help. Are you sure? His voice lowered, dangerously soft. Because I can be your greatest shield, or your worst storm. Tobias stood. Alpha Cain, no, Ares interrupted. Let him threaten. It only makes his desperation clearer. Cain rose. You mistake patience for desperation. Mate, Riker leaned over. Ken, this isn't the time. Ken's expression didn't change. It is, she see, eventually. The moon never gives what we want, only what we need. Ares didn't wait for the summit to end. She left Moonriver before sunrise, returning to the forests near Silverclaw, where the rogues lingered like rats. She needed blood, not to kill for justice this time, just to silence the ache inside her. She found them 3 rogue wolves, squabbling over stolen supplies near the old riverbed. Her weapons shimmered into life, her daggers glinting silver in the morning light. She struck fast one in the throat. Another disarmed and unconscious, the last tried to run. She pinned him to the ground, her blade to his throat. Who sent you? Blood. Blood Lake, he gasped. She froze. What? The rogue grinned, blood coating his teeth. The witch, she said. The Luna's not safe. Not with him. Ares killed him instantly. When she returned to the Silverclaw border, Tobias was waiting. You were gone again. There were rogues, I know, he said. But next time, take someone. We can't cover for you forever. She looked at him sharply. You've told no one. I gave my word, but if Cain finds out, he won't. You're wrong, Tobias whispered. He already knows everything else about you. Cain was waiting in the forest, exactly where she found the rogues. Ares stepped from the trees, weapons glowing at her side. How did you find me? She asked. I didn't, he said. I felt you. Her throat tightened. You've been hiding this from everyone, he said. But you can't hide from me. You sent the rogues. I didn't, he said calmly. But I killed the ones near your border. You're not the only one with secrets, she paced. What do you want from me? Everything. That's not an answer. Cain stepped forward. You're not just mine because of the bond. You're mine because I understand what it means to lose everything. You hunt rogues for justice. I hunted them for survival. Our blood matches in ways the moon never intended. She looked up at him, torn between fury and confusion. I don't need a mate, she said quietly. He nodded. Neither did I. Silence. Fell out then, he added. But maybe we were given each other to change what we need. Ares turned away, but didn't summon her weapons this time. And Cain didn't chase her, but he didn't leave either. They stood, side by side, beneath the bleeding sky. The final day of the Moonriver summit dawned cold and tense. The air in the hall was thick with unspoken threats. Cain arrived first, flanked by Riker. His demeanor was the same, silent, powerful, and unreadable, but his eyes searched the room, looking for one face. Ares entered last, walking beside Tobias, her face a mask of ice. The rest of the council noticed it immediately. The tension between Alpha Cain and Gamma Ares had gone from open hostility to something sharper, closer, the kind of tension that bred fire and chaos. "Before we begin," said Riker, rising to speak, "we must address the attempted breach of Silverclaw territory." Tobias narrowed his eyes. "Rogues again?" "Yes," Riker said carefully, "and one was overheard mentioning a witch." The room buzzed. Cain watched Ares closely. "You encountered them first." Ares didn't flinch. "I handled it. You could have died. I didn't." Riker cleared his throat. "There are rumors spreading among the rogue camp's whispers of a woman who walks with shadows. One who seeks to disrupt the mate bonds across the continent." Cain's fists clenched. "Do we know who this witch is?" Tobias asked. "No," Riker replied, "but she's dangerous. She's targeting bonded pairs, trying to weaken alphas by going after their mates." Cain's eyes shifted back to Ares. Ares said nothing. Inside, her thoughts raced. That rogue's dying words, the witch, the Luna not being safe. She spoke finally. "Then we'll need to root her out." "I'll return to Silverclaw, and no," Cain interrupted. "You'll come to Blood Lake." Silence. Tobias stood. "Absolutely not." Cain stood to match. "She's in danger. She needs protection." "She doesn't need your fortress," Tobias snapped. "She has us." Cain growled low in his throat. "You can't stop what's coming." "Neither can you," Ares said softly. "Not alone." Back at Silverclaw, the tension followed Ares like a shadow. She returned to her chambers, stripped off her armor, and stared into the mirror. Her reflection was sharp-edged, hollow-eyed, and glowing faintly around her collarbone, just under the skin was the mate mark that had started to form a whisper of silver. Pulsing when Cain was near, she pressed her fingers to it. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." There was a knock. "Tobias, come in." He entered slowly, arms folded. "You're shaking." "I'm not," she said automatically. "You've been different since Raver. Since him, he's not important." "Then why are you defending him in council meetings? Why haven't you ripped that mark out with one of your own blades?" Ares turned sharply. "Because if I mark him, it becomes real." Tobias softened. "You know it already is." "I'm not like the others, Tobias," she said, her voice raw. "I wasn't meant for a Luna's throne. I was made to kill. That's all I am." "No," he said firmly. "That's what you became. But it's not all you are." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Tobias added, "The witch isn't just targeting bonded mates. She's after those the moon marked wrong." Ares turned. "What do you mean?" She was once close to Selene. A handmaiden, jealous, obsessed. She believes some bonds were mistakes. Ares paled Cain and her. "A mistake. She'll come for you," Tobias said. "And Cain, whether you accept the bond or not." Ares felt Cain before she saw him. The wind shifted, her heart stumbled. Her wolf howled within her. She found him waiting at the boundary between their territories, just beyond the wild ravine. He stood beneath a towering pine tree, arms folded, watching the sky. "Did Tobias tell you I wouldn't come?" she said, stepping closer. Cain didn't smile, but his eyes lit with relief. "I figured you'd come if you were angry enough." "I'm always angry, I know," he said. "It's beautiful." She scoffed and leaned against a boulder. "You said the witch thinks our bond is a mistake." "Yes, she may. Be right? He turned to her. Then why are you here? Because I hate how your absence feels worse than your presence. His expression softened just slightly. That's the bond. No, she said quietly. That's you, Cain. Stepped toward her. She tensed, but didn't retreat. He reached out slowly and brushed his knuckles against her cheek. The touch was feather-light, but set her blood on fire. She exhaled shakily. Don't. I won't force you, Ares, he said. But if I touch you now, there's no going back. She stared at him and nodded once. His hand cupped her cheek. She leaned into it. Her mark glowed between them, and Cain's skin shimmered faintly, his own mark responding. Their wolves growled in recognition, twining around each other like vines of light and shadow. The bond pulsed. She pulled away first, breathless. That was a mistake. She whispered. Cain said nothing, but he smiled. Far beyond the borders of either pack, a fire burned green in the middle of a ruined temple. A woman with hair like ink and eyes like rotting silver stared into the flames. She saw Ares and Cain, saw the bond forming, felt it. They were not meant for each other, she hissed. The wind answered her. Magic twisted. Around her fingers, they defy fate. She was marked by grief, he by bloodlust. Their union will tear the balance apart. She stepped barefoot across the ancient stone floor, trailing vines of black mist behind her. I will fix the moon's error. From the shadows emerged her servant, a tall, dark-haired she-wolf with eyes full of loathing. Sira, give the order, Sira said. I'll kill her myself. The witch smiled. No, not yet. Let her mark him first, then we'll take everything. Back at Silverclaw, the forest air was heavy. Ares walked among the warriors training in the yard, nodding to young recruits. But her thoughts were elsewhere. Her mark pulsed no more often, stronger. Cain's emotions trickled in sometimes. Frustration, longing, even fear. She hated that she liked it. Tobias found her sharpening blades. She's moving, he said. Quietly, the witch. She's gathering others. Disgraced wolves, rogue sympathizers, exiled witches. Ares stood. Then we go after her. No, you can't leave the territory now. Why? Tobias hesitated. Because if you're gone and she attacks, Cain will come for you, and war will follow. Ares grit her teeth. I'm not staying because Cain might throw a tantrum. Tobias stepped closer. You care for him. Stop pretending you don't. She looked away. I didn't ask for this, she said. No one does. He hesitated, then added, he's on his way here. What? Cain? Alone? No army, no guards, just him. She stepped outside, heart hammering. A figure approached through the trees. Cain, he stopped in front of her, a breath away. I'm not here to argue, he said, or demand. Then, why are you here? He looked at her, and his voice dropped to something fragile. I'm here to ask. Ares blinked. Ask what? Cain inhaled deeply. Let me stay, with you, protect you, fight beside you, not as your alpha or your mate. Just as Cain. Ares looked at him, and something broke open inside her. You never ask, she said. I am now, and she, for once, didn't push him away. Deep within the desecrated woods of Blackamoor, the witch stood beside a broken shrine of Selene. Moonlight filtered through the dead canopy above, casting eerie silver-blue shadows over her pale, thorn-scored skin. Her eyes glowed as she stared into her scrying. bowl dark water rippling with images of Ares and Cain. They're too close, she hissed, voice curling with contempt. The bond thickens. She stretched a hand over the bowl, fingers dancing with black fire. Time to remind them that soulmates do not make them invincible. Sira stepped into the circle, dressed in traveling leathers, her black braid looped over one shoulder. They've weakened, Sarah said. Cain's too focused on her. If I can get close to his pack again, no. The witch's voice thundered with unnatural weight. You'll go to Silverclaw. Sira's brows lifted. You want me to kill her now? Not yet, the witch said, eyes narrowing. Poison her place first. Let her know what it's like to lose loyalty. Sarah smiled. I always did like playing with prey. Silverclaw territory wasn't accustomed to unexpected guests, so when the guards at the southern border intercepted a lone female wolf, bearing blood lake markings, they hesitated. Sarah stood calmly, hands up in a gesture of peace. Her eyes glittered. I've come with a message for Gamma Ares from Alpha Cain, she said, voice smooth as smoke. The guards exchanged wary glances and eventually sent word. Inside the main hall, Ares sat beside Tobias, Cain not far behind. The room had been on edge since Cain's arrival 3 days prior. Who is she? Tobias asked, when the messenger whispered in his ear. Cain's face darkened before the name was even spoken. Sira. The guard said. Cain stood slowly. She shouldn't be here. You know her? Ares asked. She used to be part of my pack. Used to be. She wanted to be my Luna, Cain muttered. Ares arched a brow. Let me guess. You rejected her. Yes, and she didn't take it well. Tobias stepped in. She shouldn't be allowed in the compound. But Ares raised a hand. No. Let her in. Tobias frowned. Ares, she wants to rattle me. Let's see if she has the nerve to try. When Sira entered the hall, her eyes scanned the room until they landed on Cain, then slid to Ares. She smiled like a viper. Cain, she purred, you look well. Silverclaw must be good for your blood pressure. Cain's expression was stone. Sarah turned her attention to Ares. So you're her, the Gamma who thinks she can be a Luna. I don't think anything, Ares said, voice like a blade. But I hear you thought you could be one. Sira's eyes narrowed. I came to offer peace between Cain's old world and his new one. Cain scoffed. You came to stir shit. Ares leaned forward. What do you want, Sira? I want what's owed to me, she said. The title, the respect, the power. And if I can't have Cain, you'll try to take down the woman. Who has him? Ares finished flatly. Sira's smile vanished. I'll be watching, Ares said softly. So if you plan on poisoning wells or whispering lies in my warrior's ears, you better hope your blood moves faster than my blades. Later that evening, Ares sat alone on the steps outside the Gamma's quarters. The air was cool and the stars hung low. Cain found her there, arms resting on her knees, head tilted back. You should have let me deal with Sarah, he said. I did. Cain frowned. She's dangerous. So am I. He sat beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Cain said, I want you to come with me. To Blood Lake. Ares turned to him. We've been over this. No, we haven't. Not since you let me in. Not since you stopped pretending the bond doesn't matter. Ares exhaled. I can't leave my pack. You could bring them with you. Form an alliance. Merge the ranks. I'm not a Luna, she said. You could be more than one, he said softly. You could be the weapon that protects both packs. She shook her head. You don't know what you're asking. Cain stood slowly. Then I'll ask it again. Formally, what do you mean? He turned, eyes glowing faintly. I'm requesting an official transfer of bond authority. If Silverclaw agrees, you'll become Luna of both territories. Blood Lake will back you, and your pack, in full. Her heart pounded. Tobias would never allow it, but Cain wasn't finished. If they deny it, he said quietly, I'll challenge. Alpha Laura's directly. Ares stood. Cain, I won't lose you to pride or fear. You belong with me. Don't force me to choose, she said. Cain stepped closer. You already have. Tobias didn't yell. He rarely did. But when Ares told him what Cain planned, his eyes burned hotter than flame. He's threatening the Alpha, in public. In our territory, Tobias growled. He's trying to protect me. No, Ares, he's trying to own you. I'm not property. Then stop acting like you're willing to be handed over. She flinched. It's not like that. You're Gamma. You're respected, feared. And now this whole pack is whispering about how you're going. To vanish into Cain's fortress and become some pretty decoration. I'd kill anyone who tried to make me a decoration. Tobias stopped. I know who I am, she said. I'm tired of pretending I don't want him. His shoulders dropped. I've watched you bleed for this pack, Tobias said. I've watched you carry their burdens while the Alpha slept in comfort. I'll support you, even if it kills me to watch you leave. Her voice cracked. Tobias. But Cain steps one toe out of line, he said quietly, and I'll rip his heart out myself. Ares stood at the gates of Silverclaw just before dawn, a duffel over one shoulder, armor gleaming, her expression unreadable. Cain stood, waiting for her, Riker at his side. You sure? Riker asked softly. Cain nodded. She's coming. Moments later, Ares appeared between the trees. Alone, Tobias watched from a distance. He didn't move to stop her. Cain stepped forward, offering no words, just his hand. Ares stared at it, and then placed her hand in his. The bond surged between them, hot, electric, final. Where to now? She asked quietly. Cain's smile was small but real. Home. As they turned toward the path leading out of Silverclaw, Tobias whispered a blessing into the wind, and far away, in the shadows of Blackamoor, the witch opened her eyes. Now, she whispered, let the war begin. The Blood Lake compound was built into the bones of an ancient fortress, dark stone and iron-laced towers rising like teeth from the earth. Mist rolled off the blood-colored lake beyond the eastern walls, staining the air with a metallic tamps. Ares stood just beyond the gate, arms crossed as Cain led her through the inner courtyard. The scent of warriors, old steel, and mountain ash drifted around them. Her wolf bristled beneath her skin, not with fear, but readiness. This isn't a palace, Cain said, casting her a side glance. It's a war camp. I didn't bring a crown, she replied. Cain smiled faintly. Good. Riker walked beside them, offering her a respectful nod. We've cleared the eastern wing for your use, Gamma Ares. She corrected him instantly. Just Ares. I'm not a Luna, and I'm not your Gamma. Riker raised an eyebrow, noted. Inside, warriors watched her. Most didn't bother hiding their skepticism. They'd heard the rumors, the Gamma who wouldn't submit, the she-wolf who forged weapons out of air, the killer who turned their Alpha's heart. She never last here, someone muttered. Ares turned toward the voice, one of Cain's lieutenants. a broad-shouldered male with cropped dark hair and a cruel smile. "What's your name?" she asked Yarek. "Want to put your mouth to the test, Yarek?" The courtyard fell silent. Yarek hesitated. Cain raised a brow but said nothing. Ares stepped forward. "I've survived things that would make you piss yourself. Keep your opinions quiet or I'll shove them back down your throat." Yarek looked at Cain, but the alpha remained impassive. "Dismissed," Cain said coolly. As Yarek slinked away, Riker muttered, "I like her already." That night, Ares wandered the barracks alone. She'd refused the private quarters Cain offered and instead requested to live among the soldiers. "They need to see I bleed like them," she told him. "They already fear you," Cain said. "Fear isn't respect." Cain didn't argue. Now, she sat alone at the long table in the dining hall, pulling apart bread and watching the warriors pass by. No one sat with her until Riker did. "You know, it took Cain 6 years to earn half their trust," he said. "You're trying to do it in 6 hours." "I'm not trying, I'm existing." Riker sipped from his mug. "You're making waves. They'll settle or drown you." She looked at him. "You've been with Cain long, since we were cubs." "I watched his father beat the leadership into him, watched him kill the man who nearly destroyed this pack. He built this place from ruin." Ares softened. "And now I'm supposed to come in and be queen of the ashes." "No," Riker said, "but he trusts you. That means something. It means everything." Before she could answer, a familiar voice cut through the air. "I thought royalty ate in private." Ares turned. Syrah stood in the doorway, wrapped in a dark red cloak. Her lips curled. "Didn't know Blood Lake had a jester," Ares said. "Shouldn't you be busy plotting another failed seduction?" Syrah's smile faltered, but she kept her poise. "I don't need seduction to win this pack. They already know who belongs here." Ares rose slowly. "So do I." The silence between them was thick, but Riker stood before any damage could be done. "Enough," he said. "We have a real enemy out there. No need to become one in here." Syrah sneered and turned. Ares didn't sit again, but her wolf whispered, "Watch her." Cain found Ares at the edge of the blood-red lake the next morning, standing barefoot in the cool soil, arms bare, head tilted to the rising sun. The water mirrored the sky, tinged with crimson and gold. "I expected you to punch someone by now," he said, stepping beside her. "I almost did. You didn't. I'm evolving." He smiled, just faintly. "You're adapting. I'm surviving." He studied her. "You don't have to prove yourself here, Ares," he said. Double quotes, "Yes, I do. I may be your mate, but I'm not your pack." He stepped closer. "You will be." Her chest tightened. The bond hummed like wildfire beneath. Her skin, it wasn't gentle, it never was. Their connection was forged in flame and sharpened in silence. Ares turned to him. "Cain, do you think we were a mistake?" He blinked, startled. "The witch believes we're wrong," she continued. "Fated by accident. A broken match." Cain took her face in his hands gently. "Then let her come. Let her try to break us, because I swear to the moon, if she thinks I'll give you up, she doesn't know what I've become." Their foreheads touched. The bond pulsed between them, fierce, consuming. And this time, Ares didn't pull away. Back in silver, Tobias stood at the edge of the war table, jaw clenched. She left, and the witch's shadows followed. Laura's, the alpha, looked unimpressed. "You sound emotional, Tobias." Our Gamma made her choice. Tobias's eyes flashed. Our Gamma is in danger. We all are. There have been no new attacks, yet. Loras rose, brushing off his robes. If the Blood Lake Pack wishes to protect her, let them. She is no longer our concern. She is my concern, Tobias growled. Loras paused. You always were too close to her, the Alpha said. I should have stripped you of rank when I had the chance. Tobias stiffened. Don't test me, Loras. The Alpha left, dismissing the conversation, but Tobias turned toward his patrol commander. Double our night watch, and find me the location of the last rogue den that was near the Blackamoor border. If the witch is on the move, I want to be 5 steps ahead of her. That night, Blood Lake burned. It began with a scream near the supply bunker. Then another near the warrior's wing. Ares jerked awake to the sound of howling. Within seconds, she was armored and running toward the smoke. Cain met her halfway. Eyes glowing, body already shifted halfway into his alpha form claws, sharpened. Voice layered with his wolf. Attackers breached the north wall. Ares didn't hesitate. Who, rogues? But not like before. They moved like shadows. As they raced through the courtyard, she summoned her weapons mid-run. Twin axes laced with silver light. They met the enemy near the training yard, but these weren't ordinary rogues. Their eyes glowed green, their bodies twisted unnaturally. Magic surged through them, corrupt, unstable dot, which spawned. Ares fought like a tempest, blades flashing, blood flying. Cain was fire beside her, devastation in motion. But it wasn't until she caught sight of Sarah, watching from a balcony with a satisfied smirk, that Ares knew this wasn't just an attack. It was a message. They were being tested, and the real war was only just beginning. The courtyard reeked of scorched flesh and cursed ash. Smoke drifted in lazy spirals from blackened stone where the witch spawn had fallen. Dozens of Blood Lake warriors had burns across their arms and chests, some still unconscious from inhaling corrupted magic. Ares stood over the last corpse, one of her summoned spears buried in its chest. Her eyes glowed like hot steel. Cain approached, breathing heavy but uninjured. They shouldn't have gotten this close. They didn't get in by force, Ares said coldly. They were let in. Cain followed her gaze. Cirrha she stood on. The third-floor balcony, arms crossed, face passive, but her lips were curled ever so slightly at the edges. Cain growled low in his throat. I warned her to stay clear of council rooms and war plans. She didn't need plans, Ares muttered. She needed an open gate. Riker ran up, blood on his shoulder. We've captured one of them alive. Ares snapped her head toward him. Take me to him. Minutes later, deep inside the holding cell, a rogue witch spawn was bound in silver cuffs, shaking violently, his mouth foaming from residual magic. He hissed when Ares entered. You don't belong here, he said. You were never meant to bond with him. Ares knelt. Who sent you? He spat blood. Cain stepped forward. She asked you a question. You'll burn with her, the rogue whispered. The witch sees everything. Your bond is a stain. Ares summoned a dagger and drove it into his thigh. Name, give me her. Name, he choked, blood bubbling on his lips. She was the moon's first, cast out for wanting too much. Then his eyes exploded in green light and his body turned to ash. Cain cursed. Riker flinched. Ares stood. They're watching, listening. We need to lock this territory down. Cain stepped close. No more second chances. We find the traitor. Now, by morning, Cain had doubled every patrol. Ares remained at his side, commanding warriors like she'd been born to the role. She hadn't asked to be Luna, but no one could deny that she had become one, except Sarah. Ares caught her walking freely through the inner sanctum, whispering to a group of young guards. Ares strode forward. "You've been warned to stay out of strategic areas," Sarah turned. "All false innocence. I was giving a tour. New warriors thought they should feel welcome. You're not part of this pack." Cain appeared behind Ares. "Not anymore." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're exiled," Cain said coldly, effective immediately. "You'd exile me for her. She protected this pack. You endangered." Sarah's lips trembled, then twisted. "You think she belongs here? She's a murderer with a gift she barely controls." "Say that again," Ares said, stepping forward. Sarah held her ground. "They won't follow her forever, Cain, no matter how tightly you leash her." "Wrong again," Riker said, stepping in. "They already do." Cain nodded to the guards. "Escort her out. Strip her of rank. If she crosses the border again, kill her." Sarah looked between them, anger, disbelief, pain. "This pack will burn," she spat, and she lit the fire. That night, Cain found Ares sitting alone on the western ramparts, overlooking the lake. She was quiet, her usual fire dimmed. He sat beside her, watching the moonlight ripple over the crimson water. "You okay?" he asked. "I should feel better," she murmured. "We caught the traitor, banished her, but she wasn't working alone." "She couldn't have been." Cain nodded. "I know." Ares' voice dropped. "The witch spawn mentioned something. That I was never meant to bond with you." Cain tensed. "I've heard that before," she said. "As a child, after the fire." He turned to her. "You never told me about your family. They were Silver Claw warriors, both gifted. My mother could slow time. My father could turn flesh to stone." Cain blinked. "I've never heard of gifts like those. They were rare feared. I think that's why they were targeted by rogues. Maybe the witch was already watching us back." Then Cain exhaled. "That would mean she's been planning this for decades." Ares looked up at the sky. "And if she's targeting gifts the moon didn't approve, then I was marked long before I met you." He reached over and took her hand. "I don't care what she thinks," he said. "You're mine, chosen or not." Ares squeezed his fingers. For the first time, she let herself believe it. In Silverclaw, Tobias moved in shadows now. Laura's had grown lazy, disinterested. So Tobias had taken matters into his own hands. He rode north for 2 nights, finally reaching the ruins of an old watchtower near Blackamoor. And there he found her, not the witch. A girl no more than 17, blindfolded and bleeding. Her wrists bound in barbed wire, her body etched with symbols. She whispered through cracked lips, "She's coming." "Who?" "The first. She wants your Gamma, your Firebringer, Tobias." "Knelt? How do you know?" The girl smiled terrifyingly wide. "Because I dreamed her death," she whispered. "And it smelled like lilies and blood." Tobias stood quickly, heart pounding. He brought the girl back to Silverclaw, locked her away, and called a meeting with the remaining loyal warriors. "I need volunteers," he said. "We're going to Blood Lake. You said you wouldn't interfere," his lieutenant muttered. "She's our Gamma," Tobias snapped. "And I don't trust Cain to protect her from what's coming." In Blood Lake, the morning was shattered by screams again, but this time not from an attack. A body had been found, hung from the outer wall, the scent of death. Herbs and old magic clung to it. Cain and Ares arrived first. Riker followed, sword drawn. It was a rogue butt. His body had been burned from the inside out. Symbols were carved into his skin. Cain stared. This is a warning. Ares looked closer. One of the symbols matched the ones on the girl Tobias found. She'd seen it before, in her mother's journal. It's not just a warning, she whispered. It's an invitation. To what? Riker asked. To finish what she started, Ares murmured. Cain turned to her. You know where she is. I have an idea. Then we go tonight. Ares nodded. The war had truly begun. She intended to end it. But somewhere deep in the cursed woods, the witch whispered again. Come find me, little Luna. Come bleed for the crown that was never yours. The cursed forest, known as Blackamoor Hollow, was older than any pack. Trees there grew twisted, leaning toward each other like they whispered secrets. Fog clung to the roots, and the moonlight didn't reach the ground. Ares crouched low beside Cain as they approached the heart of the woods. Riker and 3 of Blood Lake's best warriors flanked them. Every step felt like it echoed in a realm not their own. She's here, Ares murmured. Cain didn't question how she knew. They'd found the burned rogue only a day ago. The markings on his body weren't just ancient symbols, they were coordinates, markers of old paths her mother had once mapped in her hidden journal. Ares' voice was tight. She's not summoning monsters anymore. She's summoning us. Riker grunted. Feels like we're walking into a trap. We are, Cain said, unsheathing his blade. Let's spring it. They moved deeper into the trees, past skeletons of animals fused to bark, past broken altars still pulsing faintly with leftover magic. The deeper they went, the stronger the scent of ash and blood became. Then a whisper, Ares. Ares stopped. Her wolf growled under her skin. Did you hear that? She asked. Everyone else nodded slowly. Another voice, Cain. It came from everywhere. Suddenly, a figure stepped into view, hooded, draped in vines and bone knot. The witch Sarah. Ares snarled. You're dead, Sarah smiled. Not yet. Riker lunged, but she vanished like smoke. Then came the screams. The trees lit up with pale green light, and the forest exploded in motion. Witchspawn dropped from the branches, blades in hand. The ambush had begun. Cain moved like a tempest. His claws tore through corrupted wolves, his teeth snapping at throats. But the witchspawn weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to delay. Ares fought near Riker, her summoned glaive cleaving through 3 at once. They're not trying to kill us, she shouted. They're trying to separate us. And it worked. A burst of green flame forced Cain, and Riker left while Ares was flung backward, deeper into the trees. She hit the ground hard, her weapons vanishing in a shimmer of red light. Leaves rained down around her as a voice floated toward her. You're not like the others. A woman stepped from the fog. She was tall, barefoot, draped in ancient cloth and dried flowers. Her skin a sickly grey. Her eyes were silver, rotting. Silver. Ares stood, blood trickling from her lip. You must be her, the witch smiled. You carry a broken soul, child. The moon made a mistake with you. Funny, Ares growled, summoning her weapons again. I was about to say the same about you. You could have been great, the witch said, circling her. You were born of blood. Your mother was the last of the war weavers. Your father, don't say his name. He begged for your life. She didn't. She gave you your gift. To kill her enemies. And now you want to use it for love. Ares narrowed her eyes. You know nothing about love. I know enough to recognize poison, the witch snapped. Ares lunged. The fight was short and brutal. Every strike Ares made was parried with ancient magic. Every weapon she summoned melted in her hands. The witch whispered, "You will break." Him, then. She placed 2 fingers to Ares's forehead and darkness swallowed her. Cain found her body at sunrise. She was lying at the base of a ruined altar, her breathing shallow, eyes closed but twitching beneath the lids. Riker knelt over her, panic tightening his face. She's alive, Riker said, but something's wrong. Cain touched her skin. Cold, he pressed his hand to her mark. No glow, the bond had gone. Silent, that terrified him more than anything. Back, at Blood Lake, healers flooded in. They poured spells and salves into her, but she didn't stir. Not for hours, until finally, her eyes snapped open. Ares, Cain whispered, leaning over her, but she flinched from his touch. Cain froze. Ares stared at him like she didn't recognize him. What's happening? Riker asked. Then she spoke slow, deliberate. I remember everything. Cain's brow furrowed. What? The fire, my mother, my father. They didn't die in a rogue attack. Riker leaned in. What are you saying? They were sacrificed. By the witch, and by someone in Silverclaw. Cain's eyes darkened. Who? Ares's face twisted. My mother tried to keep me hidden. Someone betrayed her. Gave the witch a name. Cain sat back, stunned. And far beyond the walls of Blood Lake, in the heart of Silverclaw, a messenger arrived. Tobias read the sealed note. His face went white. He whispered, she knows. Tobias rode hard, alone. He passed the border of Blood Lake 2 days later, demanding entry. Cain met him at the gate, sword in hand. I should kill you, Cain said. You disobeyed your alpha. You came here without invitation. Tobias dismounted. Let me see her. Why? Cain snarled. So you can lie to her again. I didn't know the truth. Not until now. Cain hesitated, fury vibrating through him. Let him in, came Ares's voice from behind. She walked toward them slowly, still pale but whole again, wrapped in a long cloak, eyes hollow. Cain stepped back reluctantly. Ares faced Tobias. You knew something all these years. I only suspected you were there the night they died. Tobias lowered his head. I was patrolling the East Ridge. I saw the flare go up. I ran, too late. Who gave the witch my name? She asked. I don't know. You do, she snapped. You just won't say. Tobias looked up. It was someone close to your mother. A healer. She vanished after the fire. Her name was Elira. Ares clenched her fists. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought you'd go hunting. You were right, she turned to Cain. I want her found. Cain nodded without hesitation. I'll send scouts. Ares looked back at Tobias. You get one more chance, old friend. Betray me again, and I'll forget we ever fought side by side. Tobias nodded once, but his wolf whispered, You won't survive what's coming. That evening, Ares stood before the Blood Lake warriors for the first time, not as Cain's mate, not as a visitor, but as a leader. The courtyard filled with bodies. Every soldier who had doubted her stood present. Even Yarrick watched, with arms folded, wary but no longer mocking. I was born to a gift that shouldn't exist, Ares said. My parents were murdered for it. My pack buried the truth. Whispers broke out. I hunted rogues alone for 5 Years, she continued. I didn't do it for glory. I did it because justice had to start somewhere. Her eyes swept the crowd. And now that war is on our doorstep again, I won't run, I won't hide, and I won't let the witch rewrite our stories. The crowd tensed. I'm not your Luna, she said. Not by title. But if you'll have me, I'll be your sword. Silence. Then Riker stepped forward. We follow strength, not crowns. He knelt, one by one, warriors followed. Kneeling before her, even Jarek. Cain watched from the stairs, pride in his chest. Ares turned to him, the which thinks I'm a mistake. Cain stepped beside her. Then let's show her what a mistake can do. And far away, in a temple of bone and ash, the witch screamed in rage. The mark she'd tried to silence was rising, and the war had only just begun. They found her in a burned-out chapel near the eastern ridge once, a sanctuary to the moon goddess, now desecrated and half-swallowed by ivy. Illyra hadn't aged, at least not in the way Ares expected. She still wore the healer's robes of Silverclaw, though the fabric was torn and singed at the hems. Her eyes were sunken, hollow, like something had eaten the soul out of her. Cain, Riker, Tobias, and Ares approached slowly. She didn't run. She sat on the floor, surrounded by shattered relics, cradling a small, silver music box. Tobias's voice was low. Illyra. She looked up. When her gaze met Ares's, she flinched. You should not be alive. I get that a lot, Ares muttered. Cain stayed behind her, silent but ready to strike. Ares stepped forward. You gave the witch my name. I gave her a chance to spare you, Illyra whispered. Ares froze. What? She wanted your mother. She was trying to track the Warweavers. I told her about you to protect her, but it was too late. Ares's breath hitched. She didn't want me dead, Ares asked. Illyra's hands trembled. She didn't know who you were until I gave the name. When she realized, she changed her mind. She wanted you raised, not destroyed. You were to be shaped into her vessel. Tobias growled. You sold her out. I saved her life. Ares summoned a blade, the tip pressed to Illyra's throat. You gave the witch a child's name and called it Mercy. Illyra closed her eyes. Kill me then. I've lived with the scream of that fire in my ears every night. Cain stepped forward. No, she's more valuable alive. Let her rot in our cells until she tells us everything. Ares didn't lower her weapon until Tobias stepped between them. She's not worth the blood on your hands, he said. Finally, Ares stepped back. Get her out of my sight. That night, Cain stood alone in the war room, tracing lines across the large tactical map spread over the table. Riker leaned against the doorway, watching silently. She should have killed Illyra. Riker finally said. She wanted to. That's what scares me. Cain glanced up. She's getting colder, Riker muttered. The more they test her, the more she pulls inward. Cain sighed. She's adapting to survive. She's turning into you. Cain looked away. Riker stepped inside. You care for her. I'd die for her. Then don't let her become what you were before. Her. Cain's jaw clenched. She's stronger than I was. I buried emotion. She weaponizes it. I just don't want to lose the parts of her that made her more than her power. Cain nodded, then turned to the map again. We'll strike back. Soon, the witch is losing control of her shadows. She's getting desperate. She still has something planned. You can feel it. Cain's voice was quiet. Yes. Outside the war room, Ares stood listening to every word, and though she said nothing, her heart cracked open just enough to feel the fear creeping in. When Ares returned to her chambers, she found something waiting on her bed, a tiny flower, wilted, blackened, covered in ash dot. She stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. Her wolf growled instantly. A memory served a voice she hadn't heard since childhood. This flower never grows near fire, unless it's been burned into blooming. Her mother's voice. Suddenly her mark burned. The gift within her pulsed violently, as if rejecting something foreign. She fell to her knees, gasping, the shadows around. Her room twisted. The witch's whisper slithered through her mind. You were never hers. You were always mine, she screamed. Within seconds, Cain burst through the door, sword drawn. Riker at his heels. Ares clutched her arm where her mark now glowed a deep, unnatural red. She's trying to rewrite the bond, Ares choked. She's inside my head. Cain dropped to his knees, wrapping his arms around her. Stay with me, Ares trembled. I'm still here, but it's getting harder. Cain looked at Riker. Call the elders. We need a protection, right? As Riker rushed off, Cain pulled Ares into his lap and whispered to her wolf, fight her. Love, don't give her an inch. The elders arrived by moonrise. 3 old wolves with white hair and matching crescent scars across their brows. Each bore a different elemental mark: earth, wind, and water. This kind of corruption shouldn't be possible, the Earth Elder muttered, inspecting Ares's mark. She's not corrupted, Cain growled. She's targeted. She's being rewritten, the Wind Elder corrected. The witch is using her original bloodline against her. Ares winced. She said I was always meant to serve her, that the moon never finished me. The Water Elder's eyes narrowed. Then we will finish what the moon began. They prepared the ritual near the blood lake itself, using ancient runes and a circle carved from silver and blessed salt. Ares stood in the center, sweat dripping down her brow. Cain watched from outside the ring, hands clenched into fists. Whatever happens, Ares said, locking eyes with him, don't come in. Cain's jaw tightened. If you scream, you've heard me scream before. Trust me to survive it again. The ritual began. The moon dimmed. The mark on Ares's shoulder seared as the 3 elders chanted. The lake behind her boiled. Her gift tried to burst from her palms, but the silver ring held it in. Then came the Break the Witch's voice, a sonic scream in Ares's mind. You are my fire, mine to wield, mine to burn. Ares fell to her knees, but then another voice joined, softer, steady. Her mother forged your own fire, Ares. Ares opened her eyes, summoned her blades, and screamed a war cry that shattered the ritual circle entirely. Cain lunged forward, catching her as she collapsed. The mark on her shoulder glowed again, but now it was silver dot moon dash silver, purified by. The next morning, Ares sat atop the battlements overlooking Blood Lake's outer border. Tobias approached, quiet and unreadable. You survived. Barely you changed again. He looked down at the lake. You burned the circle. No one's ever done that. Ares nodded, because no one's ever tried to take back something they were born to lose. Tobias turned to her. You're stronger than Laura's ever feared. Good, he's watching. From Silverclaw, I hear the patrols have doubled. He should double the gates too. Tobias hesitated. I'm not going back. Ares blinked. What? I'm staying with Blood Lake. She stared at him for a long time. Cain won't like it. He already doesn't. But I do, she said. Tobias's shoulders relaxed a fraction. Then I'll serve, as I always did. Down below, Cain entered the war hall where Rika was already waiting. She's awake, Rika asked. Awake, changed, stronger. She's going to lead this war. Cain nodded slowly. And I'm going to follow her into it. Outside, the winds shifted. From the north, the witch gathered her armies. From the west, rogue packs stirred under strange banners. And from within, a shadow moved beneath Silverclaw's ancient trees, whispering of betrayal yet to come. The storm had arrived. Ares stood before her parents. Hidden shrine in the eastern cliff, caves long forgotten, overgrown with moss and wind. She had found the place again only days after the ritual. Something inside her had pulled her there. Tobias stood a few paces behind her, quiet, respectful. Ares lit the incense her mother used to use. The smell of juniper and bloodroot rose into the cave air. You never told me she was a war weaver, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I only found out after her death, Tobias admitted. She kept it secret from everyone, even your father. Her powers were too rare, too dangerous. She was afraid, Ares murmured, and I was supposed to be her second chance. She stared at the stone etched with their names, Seraphine and Calviora. I'm not them, Ares said, but I'm all that's left. Tobias stepped forward. Your mother didn't want a legacy of vengeance, Ares. I'm not fighting for vengeance anymore, she said. I'm fighting because I'm the only one who can. Outside the shrine, the wind picked up, cold, sharp, unnatural. Ares stood. She's stirring again. The witch knows we're getting close. Tobias drew his blade. Then we stir louder. Cain didn't like it. Tobias had been walking the Blood Lake halls too comfortably, too freely. And despite his loyalty to Ares, Cain could see the wary glances the warriors cast Tobias's way. He's a Silverclaw wolf, Rika said as they walked the training grounds. No matter how long he's here, they won't trust him. Cain crossed his arms, watching Tobias spar with 3 of his men. They don't have to trust him. Just follow orders. Can you? Rika asked, raising a brow. Cain didn't answer. Moments later, Tobias disarmed Yarek with a clean sweep of his blade, then offered him a hand up. Yarek took it with a grunt. He's earned a little respect, Rika muttered. That doesn't mean I like him. Rika smirked. Maybe you should just punch him and get it over with. Cain gave him a flat look. Ares joined them then, her voice amused. Are you two talking about Tobias again? Rika looked innocent. We'd never gossip. Cain ignored the comment. What did you find at the shrine? Ares's face grew serious. There's a chamber under it, sealed with runes. My mother meant for me to unlock it one day, and now, Cain asked. Now I'm ready. She turned to leave, Cain called after her. Take Rika with you. Ares smirked. You mean you want a spy? Cain didn't smile. I mean I want my mate alive. The lower chamber of the shrine was buried beneath 2 feet of stone and time. Ares summoned a spear to break the seal, and the runes sizzled as they split open. Rika stepped carefully behind her, sword drawn. Smells like death, he muttered. No, Ares corrected. Memory. Inside was a single pedestal, and on it a woven book, sealed with a blood-tied clasp. Ares stared at it. Warweaver spellbook, Rika blinked. You're going to read it. It's mine. The moment her fingers touched the lever, the clasp snapped open and silver flame poured across the room. Riker shielded his face, and when the fire vanished, Ares stood glowing faintly at the edges. The book was open in her hands. "I see it," she whispered. "What she wanted me to become. What does it say?" "That I can make more than weapons now," Ares said slowly. "I can bend the battlefield, weave fates, bind blood." Riker looked unsettled. "You sure that's a good idea?" "She gave this to me so I could survive." "No," Riker said, stepping closer. "She gave it to you so you'd remember who you are." Ares nodded slowly, closing the book. "We go back. I'll use this if I have to, but not before." In Silverclaw, Alpha Loras watched the flames dance in his hearth. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Alira's disappearance, Tobias's betrayal, Ares' survival. It was all spiraling out of control. A cloaked figure stepped into his chamber, bowing low. "She's completed the ritual," the figure rasped. "Her mark is sealed in moonfire now." Loras clenched his jaw. "Then the witch will strike harder. We must choose a side." "I've already chosen," Loras said. "She'll destroy you. Not if I deliver her what she really wants." The figure hesitated. "You would hand Ares over. I would hand Cain over," Loras hissed. "The witch doesn't want the mate. She wants the bond to fail. If Cain Desires breaks." The figure bowed again. "And if she doesn't break?" Loras's voice was cold. "Then I have one more secret left." That night, fire rained from the sky. Witchspawn cloaked in flame and wind dropped from the clouds. Their eyes glowing green, their mouths speaking tongues older than the packs themselves. The attack hit Blood Lake harder than any before. Ares led. The defense, her new knowledge pulsing through her veins, formed 2 lines. She roared, mages behind the archers, shield wall center. Riker fought at her side, blood slicking his arms. Cain arrived from the east flank, already bleeding from a cut across his chest. "She's not hiding anymore," he growled. "She's taunting us." Ares nodded. "Then let's answer." She stepped into the fray, summoning not weapons this time, but barriers. Walls of red energy encased the main gate, blocking the witchspawn's flight. "Strike now." She yelled, and the warriors did. Tobias, watching from the wall, whispered, "She's becoming something else." Cain stood beside him. "She's becoming what the moon feared, and what we need." As the last wave of enemies fell, Ares walked forward, flames dying at her feet. She looked to Cain, panting, sweat and blood streaking her skin. "She's done playing games," she said. "The witch is going to make her move, and when she does," Ares met his eyes. "I'll be ready." But in the burning shadows beyond the trees, a new shape emerged, larger, older, cloaked in the bones of kings. The witch had summoned something ancient, something not even warweavers remembered. The night air stank of scorched earth and rotted. Magic. Cain stood at the edge of the tree line with Riker and Yarrick, their warriors tense behind them. Across the clearing, the thing that had once been a man rose from the ashes of the forest floor, 10 feet tall, covered in bone armor stitched together with sinew and ancient runes, eyes like twin voids, a crown of teeth atop its skull. Ares stood between them and the bone-born king. She didn't move. "Back away," Cain warned her. "No, Ares, I've seen this thing before," she said, eyes locked on the creature, in a vision. "After I read the spellbook." Riker narrowed his eyes. "What is it?" "An ancient servant." the first mate the witch ever created, bound in death when he defied her. She's raised him to mock what I have with Cain. The bone-born king opened its mouth. The voice that came out was like cracked stone grinding together. Mate, false. I will unmake you. Cain drew his sword. You'll have to go through me first. The creature tilted its head. He is the leash. Remove him, and you will burn bright. Ares summoned her glaive. You want me. You'll have to earn me. It charged. Cain leaped first, blade singing through the night. But it wasn't enough. The king's hand struck Cain square in the chest, launching him across the field into a tree. He didn't move. Cain. Ares screamed. Her power exploded from her blood-red wings of force unfurling, weapons forming mid-air like falling stars. You don't touch what's mine. And the sky burned. Cain drifted in darkness. Pain pulsed at the edge of everything. His ribs cracked with every shallow breath. He tried to move, but COULDN, single quotes. Then came a whisper. Not the witch. Ares. You stay with me, Cain holds. You stay, or I will drag your soul back myself. He tried to answer, tried to speak her name. Light flickered, then another voice joined hers, this one older, colder. He weakens you. Cast him aside and you will rise. The witch, Cain's wolf, growled deep within, even as his body failed. You'll never have her, he said, voice raspy even in thought. She's not yours, then die for her. Pain surged and Cain screamed himself back into his body. His eyes snapped open to see Ares above him, face covered in soot and tears. Her hands glowed red at his chest, healing him with everything. She had left. Cain, she whispered. I told you, he coughed. I'm not going anywhere. Behind them, the bone-born king smoldered in pieces. Its skull crushed beneath a burning warhammer Ares had conjured mid-fight. You killed him. Riker muttered, staring at the battlefield. No, Ares said, helping Cain sit. I killed what was left of her lie. 2 days later, the witch came not in fire, but in dreams. Ares awoke in a cold sweat, the scent of lilies and decay still clinging to her senses. Cain stirred beside her. She spoke to me again, Ares murmured. Another threat. No. A deal. Cain sat up. What kind of deal? She said if I bring her my Warweaver's book, if I give her the power sealed in it, she end the war. Cain stared at her, disbelief hardening into anger. And do you believe her? I don't trust her, but I think she wants it more than she wants me dead. Cain stood. You're not giving her that book. It's not just a book. It's a binding. Cain turned. If you give it to her, she'll be able to control every Warweaver bloodline left. That means you, Ares. I know. So what? You're going to give her the leash. I'm going to fake the leash, Ares said quietly. We give her what she wants, just not the way she expects. Cain frowned. You want to trap her, with her own spell, in her own binding. He sat down slowly. That's dangerous. So is losing. Cain stared at her. You're not the same woman I met in that forest, he said. No, Ares said. She wouldn't have survived this long. At Silverclaw, the betrayal finally bloomed into blood. Laura's summoned his top lieutenants and poisoned them. Only one survived. A young warrior named Nail, who fled with the news. He reached Blood Lake before sunrise. Battered and bloody, Cain hauled him into the war room, Riker and Tobias at his side. He's coming, Nail choked. Loras is marching on you with everything. Silverclaw has left. He says you've stolen what's his. Ares entered, holding her mother's book. "He's trying to cover his trail," she said. "If Silverclaw falls, so does his legacy." Riker glanced at the map. "They'll reach us in 3 days." Cain nodded. "Then we end this. First the witch, then Laura's." Tobias stepped forward. "I want him." Ares looked at him. Then, "Stay alive long enough to reach him." Nail stood shakily. "There's something else." Everyone turned. "He's not alone. He's brought an old pack out of hiding. The Ash..." Riker cursed. "Ashfangs died years ago," Cain said. "Apparently not," Nail muttered. "And they've sworn blood to Laura's." Cain turned to Ares. "Time to make your army Warweaver strong." Ares opened the book and smiled grimly. "Let's show them what the last Warweaver can do." On the eve of the battle, Ares stood at the center of the Blood Lake training field. Her warriors surrounded her, and in the dirt she carved a circle of blood and ashed the ancient Warweaver emblem. With each line, her power bled into the earth. "This is not a blessing," she told them. "This is not holy." Her voice carried across the field. "This is permission to break what they built, to reclaim what they burned, to fight without mercy." She stood tall. "This mark will bind you to me, and I will bind our fates to victory." Cain stepped beside her. Riker, Tobias, Nail Yarakal stepped into the circle. Each warrior followed. One by one, Ares lifted the blade, and one by one she cut their palms just enough to draw blood. When the circle closed, the ground glowed. The mark surged into the chests of every warrior present, and for a moment, "They moved as one," Cain whispered. "You made them into more than wolves." "No," Ares said. "I made them into weapons." As the final light died down, a howl rose from the western watchtowers. The Ashfangs had arrived, and with them, Laura's marched in black armor, the crest of Silverclaw burning red on his chest. The final war had begun. The thunder of paws echoed across the southern ridge as the Ashfangs descended like a black flood of claws and fury. Ares stood atop the northern wall, her war-marked warriors. Behind her, moonlight gleaming off the bloodied circle etched into their armor. Cain was at her side, his shoulders tense, gaze locked on the battlefield below. "They didn't come to negotiate," Riker muttered as he arrived, twin blades drawn. "No," Ares said, her voice cold. "They came to die." The Ashfangs had not been seen in a decade, thought extinct after the Burning River massacre. But there they were now, howling walkeries with throats marked by soot and fire, eyes glowing orange like molten iron. Nail climbed beside them, face pale. They coat their claws in fireweed oil. When they slash, the wounds burn from the inside out. Cain snarled. "Then we don't let them land a hit." The first wave struck just before dawn. The sky lit in blood rains, wolves clashing beneath the rise of red banners. Ares led the charge herself, her glaive spinning through the air, enhanced now with runes from her mother's book. Every strike she landed lit up the air with flashes of silver flame. Cain fought beside her, silent and lethal, moving through the chaos like a force of nature. Tobias dueled an Ashfang beta twice his size, blood spraying as he finally landed a killing blow, but the Ashfangs didn't retreat. They laughed as they died. "They're not here to win," Riker shouted. "They're here to burn us down." The gate nearly fell before noon. Ashfang warriors had collapsed 2 of the inner barriers, and the courtyard was soaked in blood, and Cain barked orders while tending to the wounded. "Move the healers west. Reinforce the second line." Ares stood at the shattered threshold, panting, sweat clinging to her skin. Then she saw him, Laurus, approaching on horseback, like he had all the time in the world. Silverclaw soldiers behind him, armored in black steel, marked with the crescent moon. Ares descended the steps. Cain called after her, "Ares, wait," but she kept walking. When she reached the field, Laurus dismounted slowly, his gaze cold. "I remember you," he said. "Too wild, too volatile. I should have had your mother killed sooner." "Then you'd still be Alpha," Ares growled. Laurus smiled faintly. "You still think this is about titles?" He held out a scroll old, cracked with age. "The witch made a pact with your bloodline long before you were born. She gave your mother her gift in exchange for one promise that her daughter would serve." Ares's fingers twitched. "That scroll holds your destiny," Laurus said. "But give her the book, and she'll call off the hunt." Ares's eyes narrowed. "You're not her mouthpiece. I'm her leverage," Laurus said. "And Cain, he's your weakness." He didn't see the blade until it was at his throat. "You'll regret saying his name," Ares whispered. But before she could strike, flare exploded in the sky. Tobias's voice cut through the wind. "North wall, they're coming from the north." It was a trap, and they had walked into it. Ares cursed under her breath, retreating from Laurus's smirking form. She and Cain rushed toward the war hall, where Riker was already shouting commands. "They're flanking us," Riker snapped. "At least 2 more units pushing in from the tree line." "We're surrounded," Yarek burst in next. "Tunnels under. The armory have been breached. Some of our wolves are retreating without orders." Ares slammed her fist into the table. "We need to draw a line," Cain said. "Break their momentum." Tobias nodded. "If we fall back, we'll lose the inner court. If we hold, we'll risk everyone outside the ring." Ares looked between them, her heart hammered, torn. Then she turned to Cain. "I need to go north. Myself, no. Cain, you go and they'll kill you." "They're after me, anyway," she said. "This is my fight." Cain grabbed her wrist. "Then I'm coming with you." Riker nodded. "I'll hold the south with Tobias." Tobias looked startled but didn't argue. "Take Yarek," he said. "He knows the northern tunnels." Yarek grunted. "Try not to get me killed, Gamma." Ares smirked. "Try to keep up." As they moved, Ares's heart ached with every beat pull, between duty and fear, love and legacy. She was the daughter of a warweaver, the bearer of a soul-split gift, and now she was the battleground. The northern tunnel smelled like death. Yorick led the way, blade glowing faintly. Ares walked behind him, Cain beside her, the glow of her summoned weapons pulsing through the dark like a heartbeat. "They sealed this part of the fortress decades ago," Yarek whispered. "After the last rogue incursion. Then they've had a long time to make it theirs," Cain muttered. They emerged into a lower courtyard only to find her waiting. The witch, standing calmly in the snow, barefoot, arms outstretched. "Ares," she said, voice soft and melodic. "Come home," Cain growled, stepping forward, but Ares held up a hand. "I know what you want." "I want to end this," the witch said. "You were mine before you were the moon's, the fire in your blood. I lit it, you corrupted it, I shaped it, gave it purpose. All you have to do is finish the ritual." Cain stepped between them, chest rising with fury. "She's not yours." The witch's smile faded, then died with a wave. Off her hand, fire rained down. Cain pulled Ares behind him as a blast split the stones apart. Yorick lunged toward the witch, but was caught mid-air by a force that crushed his ribs before slamming him into a wall. No. Ares screamed. She unleashed her power. Full war weavers surged, the energy surging in a ring that blasted the witch backward. "You do not touch what I protect," she roared. But the witch only smiled from the shadows. "You're already mine. Even now, you fight like me." And then she vanished. Yorick was dying. The healers did what they could, but the witch's blow had shattered bones beyond repair. Cain stood by his side while Ares kneeled, guilt heavy in her eyes. Yorick chuckled weakly. "Didn't think I'd die for you, Gamma." "You're not dying," Ares said, holding his hand. "I am," he whispered. "And it's all right. Just don't forget me when you rewrite history." Ares shook her head. "You're part of it." "Good," he said. "Because I always hated Laura's version." He died before sunrise. They burned him on a high pyre at the edge of the forest. Warriors from Blood Lake and even some from Silverclaw, kneeling in silence. Tobias stood beside Ares as the flames rose. "War always costs too much," he murmured. "But peace is worse when you buy it with surrender," Ares said. Dot from behind them. Cain approached. "Laura's retreats," he said. "The Ashfangs have scattered." Riker joined them. "And the witch?" "Gone," Cain replied. "But not for long," Ares nodded. "We hold the line here," she said, "but soon we go to her." Tobias looked at her. "You're going?" "To her stronghold. She wants my power," Ares whispered. "So I'll bring it to her." Cain stepped beside her. "And I'll burn the world with you if she tries to take it." As the flames behind them died, the warriors of Blood Lake turned, and for the first time they howled for Ares. Not just as Gamma, not just as a weapon, but as their alpha's equal. And the moon watched, waiting for the final war, the forge beneath. Blood Lake hadn't been used in years. Its molten heart now glowed against it. By war and whispered spells, Ares stood before the anvil, her mother's Warweaver book open beside her. Sparks burst from the blade she shaped, not just steel, but infused silver drawn from moon-touched ore and bound with her blood. Cain leaned against the stone archway, arms crossed. "You're making a weapon." Ares didn't look up. "I'm making an answer." "Do you need one?" he asked softly. "You are the weapon." She paused, lifting the half-formed sword. "This isn't for her." Cain stepped closer. "Then who?" Ares looked at him. "You," Cain blinked. "If I fall, if she takes my mind," Ares' throat tightened, "you'll need something to stop me." He grabbed her wrist. "Don't talk like that. It's a contingency." "No," Cain growled. "It's surrender." She pulled away. "It's realism." Cain's voice was low. "Then let me make you a promise too." He stepped close, forehead against hers. "If you fall, I'll drag you back." Her breath caught. "I'll kill anyone who tries to take you from me, even the goddess." Riker gathered the remaining high-ranking wolves in the war chamber. Tobias, Nail, Cain, and Ares sat around the stone table, the war map now marked with new glyphs, each one a ward, a line, a boundary crossed. Nail pointed at the ridge. "If we move now, we can catch the witch's army before they merge with the last of the Ashfang defectors." Riker shook his head. "She expect that." "She wants a frontal assault," Tobias added. "She's waiting for us to come charging through like fools." Ares leaned over the map. "She won't expect us to go through the veil." Cain frowned. "The frost veil is cursed." "Not anymore," Ares said. "Not for me," my mother wrote. About it there's a path cloaked in old runes, invisible to anyone without warweaver blood. Tobias blinked. You want to lead the army through a forgotten route, cloaked in ancient magic, into the witch's stronghold? Yes, Ares said, while Cain leads the decoy on the front lines. Cain's jaw ticked. We split up now, and Ares' hand closed over his. You trust me? He held her gaze. With my life, then trust I'll come back. Riker nodded. We'll do both. Divide and flank. Tobias added quietly, if we win this, the Pax will never forget it. Ares didn't smile. Then let's make sure history remembers the right version. Frostvale was quieter than death. The snow here didn't fall, it hung, suspended in the air like time had forgotten how to move forward. Ares led a unit of 30 hand-picked warriors, including Tobias, Nail, and 2 of Yarick's former scouts. None of them spoke. Even Tobias, ever the cynic, held his tongue as the wind whispered the names of the dead. This is a place of endings, Nail muttered. Ares paused. Or beginnings. They moved slowly, Ares guiding them with the warweaver compass drawn from her mother's journal. Almost there, she said, after 2 days of travel. The veil should open with the next moonrise. Tobias asked, and once it opens, we walk straight into her territory. Nail rubbed his arms. And she won't see us coming. She'll feel us coming, Ares corrected. But she won't be able to stop it. That night, under the crescent moon, the runes on the snow began to glow. The veil peeled open, revealing an obsidian staircase spiraling down into a chasm of mist and ice dot. Ares stepped forward first, for Yarick, for Blood Lake, for the moon, who still watches. They descended, and behind them the veil sealed shut. The world beneath the veil wasn't natural. The skies bled crimson. The air shimmered with wrongness. Trees had no leaves, only claws. And at the center of it all stood the witch's fortress, a palace carved from obsidian, bones, and broken time. Tobias breathed. This place wasn't made. It was bled into existence. Ares gritted her teeth. She's twisted the old blood magic into a throne. As they approached, a figure waited at the gates. It was Alira, but not the Alira they remembered. She was thinner, eyes black with corruption, veins glowing with green runes. You shouldn't have come, she rasped. Tobias stepped forward. You were our healer. Alira smiled bitterly. Now I heal the wrongs you left behind. Ares summoned her blade. Move, or I will cut through. You, Alira's smile vanished. She wants your soul, Ares, not your death. She can't have either. Alira raised her hands, and the gate opened. Behind her, the witch stood atop a bone dais, her hands outstretched. Welcome home, daughter of Seraphine. Ares' eyes glowed. I didn't come to kneel. Back at Blood Lake, Cain prepared. The decoy force. Riker rode beside him, steel armor glinting beneath war paint. They'll reach us by dusk, Riker said. You sure she's ready? Cain didn't answer. His mind was back in the forge on the sword Ares had made for him. It lay at his hip now, pulsing faintly with her magic. If she doesn't return, she will, Cain interrupted. She's not just a fighter. No, Riker said, smiling faintly. She's a revolution. At the edge of the ridge, the witch's frontal army crested the horizon. No sign of ash fangs, just silence. Then, as Cain raised his hand, the sword Ares forged for him lit up. It pulsed once, twice. Twice she was alive, and she was inside. Cain smiled darkly. Open the gates. Let them think they've won. Riker blinked. What? Cain drew the glowing blade. Because now she's exactly where she needs to be. And as the battle began on the surface, beneath the ground, Ares Vaya entered the fortress of the witch, with the fire of a war weaver and a blade named Ensong. Ares stepped into the inner sanctum of the fortress. The obsidian floor reflected the storming skies above. Bones were embedded in the walls, each humming with faint echoes of stolen gifts. The throne itself was carved from the spines of wolves, a grotesque monument to broken legacies. The witch stood at the top, draped in robes of green and gold. You should be grateful, she said. No daughter of Seraphine has ever walked this far, not even your mother. Ares's hand tightened around her weapon. You made her suffer. I gave her meaning. You used her blood to bind your first king, then cast her out when she refused to give you more. The witch's smile was slow, cruel. And you? Will you refuse me too? Tobias and Nail flanked Ares silently, weapons drawn. The witch stepped down from her throne, barefoot, her skin glowing faintly with power. I could give you everything. I could burn the moon from the sky and crown you my queen. I already have a kingdom, Ares said, her voice hard. You'll lose it. The ash fangs will kill Cain. Your wolves will fall. And I'll harvest your soul from your lover's corpse. Ares raised her blade. Then take your last breath, standing. And the ground began to shake above the battlefield. Cain stood atop the southern wall, the blade Enzong glowing at his side. The first waves of the witch's forces clashed with Blood Lake's warriors. Riker led the charge on the eastern flank, his twin blades soaked in blood. We hold the front, Cain shouted. Push them into the ravine. Neil's scouts, left behind for defense, emerged to join the fight, while Tobias's loyalists from Silverclaw rallied beside them. Everywhere, the scent of fire and steel filled the air. Cain moved like a storm, Ensong slicing through enchanted bone and claw. But the enemy wasn't just physical. Whispers haunted the wind, illusions conjured by the witch herself, shadows of dead warriors, cries that mimicked Yarek's voice, images of Ares bleeding in chains. Riker yelled, "Ignore them. Focus." But Cain stopped. The illusion was too perfect. Ares, broken, pleading, Cain. Then a voice, the real one, cut through the fog. You don't break that easily, Alpha. It was Nail, driving his blade through the heart of the illusion, shattering it. Cain exhaled. She's alive. Riker nodded. Then let's make sure there's a kingdom left for her to come back to. Inside the fortress, the witch summoned her inner guard creatures, made from twisted werewolves, stitched together with magic and hatred. Tobias cursed. She's been harvesting wolves for decades. Ares nodded grimly. This ends now. But as they prepared for battle, Alira stepped forward. She moved between the witch's army and Ares, her body still trembling with corruption. I was your voice, Alira said to the witch. I healed your monsters. I sold my soul for purpose. You were mine, the witch hissed. Not anymore. With a scream, Alira turned on her former mistress, launching a bolt of pure green fire that shattered 3 of the guard before they reached Ares. Ares stared. You could have run. I was broken long before I met her, Alira said. But Yurek died for something. I want to die for it too. Tobias stepped beside her, sword drawn. Then we die together. Ares raised her weapon. No one dies today. We end her, and we live. And then they charged. Steel, magic, and fury met in the throne room. The witch's laughter echoed, but for the first time, it trembled. Cain felt it before he saw it. A flare of power, not the witch's, but Ares's, burst like a beacon from deep underground. Song lit up again, brighter than before. "She's in position," Cain said. "Now we break their backs." Riker grunted, blood running down his arm. "Then let's punch through." Together, the front line of Blood Lake surged forward. Tobias's remaining Silverclaw defectors fought with reckless devotion, shaming the name their old alpha had dragged through the mud. At the rear, Nail planted the last of Ares's warding glyphs, forming a circle of protection around the central ridge. As Cain fought, images flickered in his head. Ares alone beneath the fortress, her power burning. "Hold the line," he roared. "Hold it until she calls the storm." Then the sky cracked open, and she did. Red lightning split the clouds. The fortress shuddered, and from below a scream, ancient and broken, echoed across the world. The witch had felt her match, and Cain smiled through bloodied teeth. "She's calling it down." The witch stumbled. Ares stood before her, body ablaze with magic. Her eyes were lit with Warweaver fire, her veins glowing red beneath her skin. Alira lay collapsed behind her, wounded but alive. Tobias held the line at her. Sighed, "You are mine." The witch shrieked, "You were made to be mine." "No," Ares said. "I was made to end you." She thrust her hand forward, and the Warweaver book opened in midair. Words written in Seraphine's hand, spells bound in love. Not fear unfolded with a whisper. Ares spoke the final invocation. Let the throne fall. The bones beneath the which cracked, her throne exploded in a cyclone of shattered magic and howling voices. The witch screamed, but Ares didn't stop. She raised her hand and called Song. From miles above, the blade flew from Cain's grip, streaking through the sky like a comet. It landed in Ares's hand with a hiss of light, and she drove it through the witch's chest. The world fell silent. Then the fortress began to collapse. Tobias ran to Ares. "We have to go," Alira groaned. "She's unraveling the whole damn place." Ares didn't move. Then Cain's voice in her mind, clear as a bell, spoke one word. "Come home." And Ares turned. She ran toward the light, toward Cain, toward everything that still lived. The witch's fortress collapsed in a plume of dust and spiraling magic, shattering like glass against the mountain floor. From the ridge above, Cain stood, frozen, bloodied, and silent, eyes fixed on the ruins below. Riker stood beside him, blade still drawn. "She did it," Riker said quietly. "She's still in there." Then, movement from the swirling debris. A single figure emerged. Ares, her cloak torn, face streaked with blood. Song dragging behind her as if the blade weighed the whole world. Tobias and Alira limped behind her, battered but alive. Cain ran. He reached her just as her knees buckled, and he caught her mid-fall, arms locking around her before she hit the ground. "You're here," Ares whispered. "I told you," Cain said, voice low with emotion. "I'd drag you back if I had to." She buried her face into his neck. "I didn't think I'd make it. I did." Behind them, Riker and Nail approached with wary relief, and Alira dropped to her knees, tears in her eyes. "Is she dead?" Riker asked. Tobias answered, "Her throne is broken, her power unraveled. Whatever comes next won't be her." They stood in silence. Then Cain looked at Ares. What do we do now? And Ares, leaning into him, whispered, we rebuild. The survivors of Blood Lake, Silverclaw, and even some Ashfang defectors gathered in the ravaged halls of the old Blood Lake. War camp 2 nights after the fortress's fall. The pyres still burned for the dead. Yarick's name was carved in stone, beside those of others who had fallen. Riker stood beside Tobias and Nail near the council stones. Laura's is gone, Tobias said. The remnants of Silverclaw want a new alpha. Riker scoffed. They have the nerve to ask after everything. They're broken, Nell muttered. They don't know who to follow anymore. Tobias looked to Riker. They asked for her. Riker raised a brow. Ares, her blood, her power, her sacrifice. Tobias said, they want to swear fealty. Cain walked in then, cloak trailing dust, and the hall fell into a hush. He took one look at the crowd and said, not to me. Ares entered behind him, still healing, but the strength in her step returned. She looked at them all. I am not your Luna, whispers, but I am the blade that saved you, the blood that bled for you. The daughter of Seraphine, she raised her hand. I will not rule you, but I will lead you. If you want peace, follow Cain holds. If you want strength, follow me. The room erupted, and for the first time in the history of the Blood Lake, 2 voices howled, together Alpha and Warweaver. Later, that night, Cain and Ares stood alone atop the cliffs overlooking the lake. The waters shimmered silver under the full moon, eerily calm. You could have taken it all, Cain said. The throne, the packs, power. I didn't fight for that, Ares replied, arms crossed. I fought so no one would have to again. Cain turned to her. And what about us? She tilted her head. What about us? You didn't just fight for them. No, she said softly. I fought for you. He stepped closer. Then what are we? Ares stared at the water. You're my mate, my anchor, my only softness. And you? Cain asked. I'm the storm you carry through the fire. He closed the distance between them. Marry me. Her breath hitched. What? Not for the packs, not for peace, for us. She laughed an exhausted, fragile sound. You really want to marry the moon's least favorite daughter? Cain smiled. She doesn't get a vote. Ares leaned forward, touched his face, and whispered, yes. Alira sat in the healer's den, fingers trembling as she cleaned bandages. Her magic had weakened, fractured from her betrayal of the witch, but not broken. Nail entered quietly, carrying a satchel of herbs. Still can't sleep. Alira looked up. How do you live with it? With what? Being loyal to someone who didn't deserve it. Watching them burn everything and still following until it was too late. Nail sighed and sat beside her. I remember Yarick. He used to say loyalty wasn't about who you followed. It was about who you protected. Alira looked down at her hands. I protected the wrong side. And now you're protecting the right one, Nail said. That's what matters. A pause. I saw her today, Alira said. Ares, she smiled at me. She does that sometimes now, Nail murmured, like she's still learning how. Alira exhaled, the tightness in her chest softening. Maybe there's hope for all of us, then. Nail placed a hand over hers. There is, in the dark forests beyond the collapsed fortress. Something stirred. A pair of glowing blue eyes opened beneath the roots of an ancient tree. The ashfangs were not dead. They had fractured, yes, but not destroyed. And something older than the witch holder, than the moon's law was, waking deep beneath the ice, a voice, older than names, whispered into the bones of those who had once followed death. Blindly, balance has been broken. Back at Blood Lake, Ares woke suddenly from a dream. She turned to Cain beside her, her heart racing. He blinked awake. "What is it?" I felt. "Something," Ares said, "like frost biting my soul." He sat up, a threat. She nodded, but not from her, something older, colder. Cain stood, reaching for his blade. "I thought we ended it." Ares stood too. So did I. And as dawn crept over the horizon, the two of them stood together, watching the world they saved shift again. Something new was coming, but this time they would face it as one. The north had always been cold, but not like this. Ares stood on the ridgeline above the old ruins of Ashfang territory, the wind biting through even her thickest furs. Snow no longer fell, it hung, suspended like breath frozen in time. The trees below didn't sway. They creaked like they mourned something ancient and endless. Cain stepped up beside her, Ensong strapped to his back. "I sent scouts to trace the cold," he said. "To haven't returned." Ares didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the frost lines carving across the stone Belorans. Not natural, glowing faintly blue. "It's spreading," she said. "This is no weather pattern." Nell approached from behind them, bundled in heavy cloaks. "I found something," he said, breath fogging. "In the Ashfang archives. A name, Sverrin." Ares turned. "What is it?" "Not what," Nell said. "Grimly who? A frostbound spirit, ancient, supposedly imprisoned long before the first werewolves were made." Cain frowned. "Another god." Nell shook his head. "Worse, a balance breaker. He doesn't destroy for vengeance. He destroys to reset." Ares' jaw tightened. "Then he's coming for us all." Back at Blood Lake, Tobias stood at the edge of the infirmary, arms crossed as Alira worked over a wounded scout. The boy's skin was turning grey-blue, veins crystallizing from the inside. "I've never seen magic like this," Alira muttered, panic creeping into her voice. Tobias stepped forward. "Can you stop it?" "I'm trying," she said, summoning green flame to the boy's chest. "But it's not just freezing him, it's changing him." Riker entered moments later, frost clinging to his boots. "I found a path in the north ridge. Something's opened." He paused when he saw the scout. "Gods," Alira finally whispered. "He's not going to make it." The boy, barely 15, turned to Tobias, eyes flickering pale blue. "He's already here." The boy's body seized, then went still, a moment of silence. Then the frost crawled from his mouth and veins, etching Sverrin's rune into the wood beneath him. Tobias looked up, face ashen. "He doesn't need armies," Riker grunted, voice grim. "He just needs us to survive long enough to spread him." Ares and Cain met with the remaining allied pack alphas 3 days later in the Blood Lake Council Hall. The air was heavy, tension crackling like lightning between wolves who had once tried to kill each other. Tobias stood behind Ares, arms folded, nail paced near a wall. Riker leaned silently against the door. First the witch growled Alpha Dren of Ironshade. Now this ghost made of frost. "When do you stop bringing death to our doors?" Cain's eyes snapped toward him. "This isn't about us. It's about what woke because of her." Alpha Vesa of Hollowstream nodded. "The balance has shifted. Our ancestors warned of such things. Spirit gods bound in ice. Forbidden names. We shouldn't have touched her throne," someone else muttered. "We had no choice," Ares said sharply. "She was using your wolves, feeding your children to her." Vesa raised a brow. And now this frost demon seeks vengeance. Nell stepped forward. Sverren doesn't want revenge. He wants silence. He's not here to punish. He's here to erase, Cain said. So what do we do? Ares met every gaze in the room. We fight. One by one, Alpha stood and bowed. This time, not just to the Alpha of Blood Lake, but to Ares, the war weaver of the north. The entrance to Sverren's tomb was found by accident. Tobias, guiding a group of scouts beyond the frost veil, stumbled upon it beneath a collapsed temple buried under a frozen lake. Its roof had shattered inward, revealing a spiral descent carved in untouched ice. They sent for Ares and Cain immediately. This isn't a cave, Tobias said as they stood before the entrance. This is a sanctum, built to worship Ares. Stared down into the dark, her fingers twitching. There's something wrong. Of course there is, Nail said, stepping up. This is where balance was kept, before the moon's order, before the first howl. Alira arrived then, pale and sweating. We shouldn't be here. The closer we get, the worse the pulse feels. Cain looked to Ares. Then we end it here. But Ares didn't move. She heard it whispers in her head, words in her mother's voice. You broke one throne, daughter. But this one was never meant to rise again. And below them, frost bloomed across the stairs, like veins reaching, that night. Ares sat alone on the cliffside, outside the temple entrance, her back to the frozen sky. Cain found her there, silent, watching the horizon. He's waking, isn't he? Cain asked. Ares nodded. The wards are breaking. The witch was keeping him asleep without even knowing. Cain sat beside her, shoulder to shoulder. I'm scared, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. This thing doesn't want to rule or burn. It just wants stillness, like it wants the world to stop existing. Cain reached for her hand. Then we stop him. She looked at him, eyes glassy. I've never fought something I couldn't touch. You fought for a soul the moon wanted. Buried. I almost lost mine, but you didn't, Cain said. You came back. She leaned into him. We need allies. Not just wolves, druids, spirits. Anything left that remembers the old balance. Cain nodded. Then let's call them. Ares stood slowly, the wind howling through her hair. Tomorrow we begin. And somewhere beneath the ice, Sverren opened his eyes. The morning sky was painted grey-blue, no longer the silver of Blood Lake, nor the frostbitten white of the Vale. It felt suspended, like the world was waiting to exhale. Ares stood in the center of the war circle, surrounded by wolves, druids, emissaries from Hollowstream, Ironshade, and the splintered remnants of Silverclaw. Beside her stood Cain, his expression sharp and unreadable. Tobias stepped forward first. The wards below are weakening faster than expected, he said. Alira believes the last seal will crack by the next full moon. Riker added, we found an old druid camp, half frozen in the western cliffs, empty. Runes melted into the ice. They were trying to hold something back. Ares nodded. The balance that kept Sverren buried is crumbling. We need to remake it before he reclaims it in his own image. A murmur rose from the crowd. Remake it? Asked Alpha Vesa. We aren't gods, Warweaver. No, Ares said, but we're what the gods left behind. The moon chose us. The flame, the claw, the gift. Nail stepped forward, unrolling a scroll. There is a rite, ancient, dangerous. It requires 5 anchors, 5 wolves bound not by blood but purpose. Tobias muttered. You mean a suicide circle? Nail looked up. I mean hope. Cain's voice cut through. We'll do it. Ares turned sharply. Cain, he met her eyes. We don't have a choice. If we don't remake the seal, we won't have a world left to rule. The preparation took days. Each chosen anchor had to be marked by both the moon and the flame symbols, painted with Alira's gifted green fire and blood from the first line of werewolves. Ares went first, bearing her back as Alira painted a spiral of ancient symbols across her spine. Next was Cain, then Tobias, then Nail. The final spot went to Riker, who volunteered with surprising quiet. I saw what Jarek died for, Riker said. This makes his death matter. The five stood in the circle of bone and salt, surrounded by glowing runes. Each placed a hand on the sacred stone drawn from the old Frostvale sanctum. Once this begins, Alira warned, your souls will be bound to the seal. Tobias raised a brow, meaning, if one of you breaks, the others suffer. Nail added, and if the circle collapses, Spheren will rise whole. Cain looked to Ares. You ready? She nodded, her voice firm. Let's rewrite fate. As Alira began the incantation, the wind howled through the war camp. Snow turned to crystal dust, and the ground beneath them began to glow. And far below's, Veron stirred in his prison. Pain came first, blinding, bone-deep, pain that made even Ares drop to her knees. The bond to the seal wasn't just spiritual, it dug into memory, into trauma, into every scar they had buried. Tobias clutched his head, gasping. I can feel my father's voice, he's screaming. Nail trembled violently. My brother, the one who turned rogue, I see him again. Cain growled through clenched teeth. It's a trick. Spheren's trying to divide us. Keep the bond. Alira yelled from the outer edge. Stay linked. Ares forced herself upright, voice ragged. Spheren uses stillness. He shows you the past to freeze the present. She gritted her teeth. But we are not still. Riker slammed his fist into the earth, forcing the seal to light again. Cain moved closer to Ares, pressing his shoulder to hers. Talk to me. I'm here, she breathed. I see her, my mother, but it's not real. You're with me, Ares nodded, and the pain began to dull. The circle stabilized. Spheren's voice whispered across the link, hollow and ancient. You defy entropy, you defy the end, but the end remembers. Nail whispered, he's learning us. Cain replied, then let him learn what losing tastes like. On the third day, something broke. One of the outer scouts returned, barely alive, collapsing at Riker's feet. They're coming, he wheezed. Something's wearing wolves. Ares stepped forward, catching the dying scout's final whisper. Eyes. Blue fire, hollow mouths. Tobias cursed. Frostborn, Alira's face went pale. He's begun. From the western ridges, figures appeared. Once wolves, now twisted into icy shells. Their limbs elongated, faces stretched into gaping maws. They didn't howl, they echoed. Cain drew Ensong. Defend the ritual. Nail turned to Ares. We can't stop now. I know. Cain nodded to Riker. I'll take the right flank. Ares kissed him quickly. Don't die. I won't, he said. I made a promise. As Cain and Riker charged the Frostborn, Alira summoned walls of flame to hold the left. Ares returned to the circle, magic burning beneath her skin. Each minute bought now cost blood. Each word spoken became harder to finish. But Spheren felt it, the old seal reforming, and for the first time, he screamed. Ares fell into a vision. She stood in the heart of ice, staring at Swerin himself, a towering figure made of frost and shadow, crowned with antlers of solid crystal. "You bind yourselves to delay me," he said, voice like glaciers, cracking, "but delay is not denial." Ares stepped forward, unafraid. "You don't get to decide how the world breathes. You are a blade," Swerin said. "You cut, and when you have nothing left to cut, you turn on yourself." "Am more than what I kill, are you?" he asked, and suddenly he wore her face, her expression from the night she found her parents. Bodhi's. Ares flinched. Then a second voice entered, Cain's voice. "You are not alone." Behind her, in the dream, she felt Tobias's resilience, Neil's heart, Riker's strength, and she screamed, not in fear but in fury. The vision shattered. Ares rose back into the world. Surrounded by flame, blood, and light, Alira stood with hands raised. Trembling, guard Cain was bleeding from his ribs, Riker limping but standing. Neil gasped, eyes glowing, and Tobias grinned. "It worked," he said. The seal pulsed. Swerin was locked, not gone, but bound again. For now, the battlefield was silent now, where the Frostborn had fallen. Ice didn't melt it, evaporated, leaving behind only scars in the soil and the scent of something ancient and wrong. Ares sat on the ridge overlooking what had once been Sverin's entrance. The ceiling stone pulsed faintly with residual magic beneath a protective veil of runes drawn by Alira. Cain approached slowly, his ribs still bandaged, ensong sheathed. "You should be resting," he said. "So, should you?" Cain eased down beside her, groaning slightly. "We keep doing this." Ares gave a ghost of a smile. "Saving the world? No. Sitting over ruined landscapes like we know what the hell comes next." A pause stretched between them. Finally, Ares whispered, "He showed me my worst memory." Cain glanced at her. "Your parents?" She shook her head. "No, it was. The first time I killed for vengeance, and liked it." Cain didn't speak. He didn't need to, she continued, voice quieter. "I thought I was doing it for them, but sometimes I wonder if it was just for me, to feel power, to not be small anymore." Cain reached over and took her hand. "We don't get to choose how our rage starts, but we do get to choose where it ends." She looked at him then, and for the first time since the frost began, she nodded with conviction. "Then it ends here." Alira sat in the healing den, flames dancing above her palm. Her power had returned, diminished, yes, but clean, untainted. By the witch's legacy, Neil entered carrying book treatises on spirit lore and iceborne curses. "You're awake," he said. "I haven't slept," she muttered. "You should." "I'm afraid I'll dream of her." Neil sat beside her. "You didn't just defy the witch, you rewrote your magic's legacy." Alira studied the fire in her hand. "What if I break again?" Nell smiled gently. "Then we catch you, like you caught us." There was a pause. Then Alira said, "You stayed behind when I turned. You were never fully gone." She looked at him, voice trembling. "Do you forgive me?" "I already did." Alira blinked. Nael added, "Now maybe it's time you forgive yourself." In the council hall, Tobias stood before the remnants of Silverclaw's elder council. Alpha Laurus's banner had long been burned, but some still clung to the idea that power could return to the old blood. "We need a leader," one elder barked, "and Tobias has the blood of the first Alpha." "I am not that man," Tobias said, "and I don't want to be." but you're the only one left who knows what it means to lead. Riker stepped in from the rear, arms crossed. He's right. He knows what it means because he watched it rot from the inside. Tobias met the elder's eyes. Silverclaw no longer exists as it once did. That kingdom is dust. But if you want to rebuild it, it will be as allied Canunda. No throne, no bloodline. And who do we swear to? Cain entered then, standing beside Tobias. Not to me, Cain said. Ares followed. Not to me, she added, but to each other, to peace. After a long pause, one elder bowed, then another, and finally, all of them. Tobias turned to Ares, later that night, voice low. You realize we're actually doing it. Building, no, uniting. Riker sat alone in the lower caves, sharpening his blade slowly, the rhythmic scrape echoing off the stone. Cain found him there. Didn't think you were the type to hide underground, Cain said. Riker didn't. Look up. Didn't think I'd live long enough to. Cain chuckled. Ares says you didn't crack once in the circle. Riker finally stopped sharpening, because I saw him. Cain frowned. Your wreck. Riker nodded. He stood behind. Me, said, don't you dare flinch. Just like the old days. Cain sat down across from him. That's not weakness. That's memory. I hated him, Riker muttered, and I loved him, and now, I don't know what I am without him. Cain leaned forward. You're still a warrior. You're still my second, and you're still family. Riker swallowed thickly. Yeah. I just needed to hear it. Cain clapped a hand on his shoulder. Then hear this. You're not alone. Not anymore. It was the first clear night in weeks. The snow had stopped. The air, while still cold, no longer bit with unnatural cruelty. And from the cliffs overlooking the rebuilt hall, the moon gleamed soft, full, forgiving. Ares stood beside Cain, both cloaked, silent, watching the celebration below. Bonfires blazed. Wolves sang. Children played with wooden daggers shaped like endsong. It feels like a dream, Ares whispered. Cain smiled. It's real. We made it real. She turned toward him. So what now? We finish it. She blinked. What? No. More fragments. No more half-piece. We gather every alpha, every wolf. We call them to the table. You're talking about the Concord of Pax. Cain nodded. It's time. Ares considered him for a long moment. Then we do it together. He grinned. Wouldn't dare without you. They looked up to the moon then. The same moon that had watched them bleed, rage, fall, and rise again. And when they howled, this time it was not a cry of mourning, but of hope. The great summit, grounds hadn't been used in over 70 years, nestled in the heart of the neutral Dawnridge Valley. The ancient stone amphitheater was once the site where the first werewolf laws were debated before war, before bloodline betrayals, before the splintering of the packs. Now the air was tense with cautious hope. Ares stood beside Cain at the center of the crescent-shaped platform. Around them were seated wolves from every surviving Picaian shade, Hollowstream, Ashmark, and even distant Snowcrest. Tobias, Nail, and Riker flanked them. Alira stood just behind with a silent green flame hovering near her shoulder. Cain raised his voice. We are no longer just alphas and gammas. We are not enemies, nor relics of a broken code. Murmurs echoed. We are survivors, Ares said, stepping forward. And if we want to ensure our young never bleed for mistakes we inherited, we build something better. A deep voice growled from the right. You mean erase what we were. It was alphameric of Ironshade. No, Ares replied. I mean evolve. Tobias added, we rewrite. Together, a new concord, new laws, a shared council, rotational leadership, equal votes, no more blood-based dominance, even rogues. Someone scoffed. Cain's gaze sharpened. Even those who prove worthy, no one is born evil. They're shaped by what we abandoned. Silence. Then Alpha Vesa of Hollow Stream stood. I lost a son to the witch, another to Spheron's cold. I don't want to lose my grandson to our own pride. She stepped forward. I vote yes. The concord had begun. 2 days into the concord, arguments broke out faster than they could be resolved. In the high chamber, Nail, Illyra, and Tobias sat at a long stone table with 3 elders from Ironshade and 4 from Ashmark, debating the pack border clause. I'm telling you, Illyra snapped, if you let old land rights override the survivors' needs, you'll just birth another war. Elder Gran of Ironshade scowled. So we let our ancestral land be carved up like meat. Nail calmly placed a map down. You don't have a choice if you want peace. Tobias leaned in. Half of your land is uninhabited ice, Gran. We're asking you to share half of that, half to resettle Ashmark orphans. You're not dying, you're adapting. The elder huffed, but didn't argue again. Illyra turned to Tobias as they left the chamber. Did we just make progress? A little, he said. Peace isn't loud, it's just persistent. Meanwhile, in the outer corridors, Cain and Riker discussed the Warweaver Clause, controversial proposal that would allow Ares to hold final vote-breaking authority in times of supernatural threat. She's not a goddess. Riker muttered, no. Cain said, but she's the only one the rest of them fear and respect. As the Concord approached its 4th day, tensions shifted again. Nail stood outside the stone amphitheater, whispering urgently to Ares. They found a camp, northern edge of the Vale, recent fires, tracks, rogues. Ares asked. No, not rogues. Frostborn, she tensed. I thought we sealed Spheron. We did, but remnants remain. Sleeper cults. Those who still worship Frost. They call themselves the Stillborn Dawn. Ares muttered a curse under her breath. Cain joined them mid-conversation. We need to send a warning. No, Ares said, already thinking faster. If we do, half of these alphas will walk away from the Concord in fear. We need proof. Then we present it together. Riker arrived moments later. I'll take a scouting party tonight. Ares nodded. Take a Lyra and a druid. Quiet, fast, Cain added. And if they're recruiting again, we need to know how. Farther rot spread. As Riker and Illyra prepared to leave, Ares turned to Cain with grim resolve. If we can't hold this concord together, she said, we're handing Severan's cult exactly what they want. Then we don't let it fall apart, Cain replied, even if we have to hold it with blood. By day 5, exhaustion was etched into every face at the Concord. Tempers frayed, patience thinned. Ares stood in the central circle again, voice steady but eyes tired. We've agreed on 8 of the 11 clauses, she said. But unless we agree on representation, none of this matters. Alpha Merrick grunted. 1 council seat for every pack sounds fair. But some packs are 30 wolves, others are 300, Tobias countered. And what about the hybrids? Asked Vesa, or wolves born giftless? Cain stood, voice sharp. Representation is not about power, it's about voice. We give every pack a seat, but major votes require coalition consensus. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Marek barked. That's complicated. That's how peace works. Ares snapped. A hush fell. Elira re-entered the hall just then, her face pale. They're real, she said. The stillborn dawn. Riker saw them. Frozen wolves in prayer, waiting. Ares turned back to the council. If we don't finish what we started here, they will. And you won't be arguing over seats, you'll be begging for breath. Silence, then Vesa whispered, put it to a vote. That night, a vote was cast by stone and blood. Each alpha dropped their carved sigil into the sacred fire at the center of the Concord. Ares and Cain stood side by side as flames turned blue, green, and finally white. Nail watched the fire die. 2 embers, Tobias whispered. That's a majority. The Concord was ratified. The crowd didn't cheer. They exhaled. Riker returned with frost burns across his arms and a list of known stillborn camps. We'll need raids, he said quietly. But not now, not tonight. Cain nodded. Tonight we celebrate. That evening, wolves from a dozen different packs broke bread. They drank together. They danced. Ares found Elira by a tree, watching the sky. We did it, Ares said. Softly, Elira nodded. But we're not done. No, Ares agreed. But now we're not doing it alone. Cain pulled Ares into a slow, wordless dance by firelight around them. Wolves of different bloodlines and broken histories moved together, and when they howled at the full moon, they didn't howl for war. They howled for the future. The stillborn camp lay buried in a sunken forest veiled in unnatural mist. Riker knelt beside a tree scorched black at its base. The bark twisted in strange spirals. They pray in silence, he muttered. No voices, no howls, just breathing. Elira stood nearby, clutching her satchel of warding stones. They're not wolves anymore. They've been emptied out. Cain crouched beside them, eyes narrowing. How many? Maybe 40, Riker answered. But I saw one of them summon ice without moving. Just lifted a hand and the air froze. Ares stepped forward, green, flame flickering across her knuckles. They're trying to finish what Spheron started. Nail examined the frozen runes etched into the clearing. They're calling him back, piece by piece. Can they succeed? Elira asked, her voice taut. Nae. El hesitated. Not entirely, but even fragments of Spheron are dangerous. Cain stood. We hit them. Quiet, fast, before they spread. Ares nodded. We take a mixed team. No pack banners, just Concord warriors. Tobias stepped from the shadows, already armed. Then let's remind them what happens when wolves fight. Together. That night, under a moon shrouded in thin clouds, 20 Concord warriors moved through the woods like shadows. Ares led the charge, her weapons drawn from nothing to short blades of glowing steel. Cain was beside her, ensign humming with restrained. Fury.Lira whispered protection spells across Tobias's armor, while Nail lit the trees with softly glowing sigils to keep them from being warped. They reached the stillborn circle just as one of the frostbound wolves raised a palm toward the sky. Now, Riker growled. Chaos exploded. Ares dove first, blades slicing through a half-frozen figure before it could finish its chant. Cain cut down 2 more, his movements brutal and clean. Elira cast waves of fire across the outer edge, driving the cultists into the open. Tobias moved in perfect rhythm with Riker, backs to each other, defending Elira as she sealed the first summoning rune. One of the stillborn lunged at Nell, ice spears forming from his ribs. Nell didn't blink. He raised a hand and invoked a blinding flash of starlight. Ares kicked the cultist back into a tree. That's one seal down. Elira shouted, 3 more to go. Tobias responded. They pushed forward, coordinated, furious, unstoppable. Spherin's echo screamed across the battlefield, but the wolves did not retreat. They roared. The second and third seals went quickly too. Quickly, Elira burned the second with green flame. Nail cracked the third with lunar magic and a crushed crystal core. But the final seal pulsed with blue fire, not frost. Something stronger, Cain stood before it, lips pressed thin. This one's different, he muttered. It's feeding off our magic. Ares stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Spherin's adapting. Nail frowned. He's learning to live in fragments. Not full form, but embedded. Tobias hissed a curse. He's becoming a concept, not just a being. Riker growled. Then let's erase the concept. Elira stared at the final rune, her fingers twitching. I can do it, she said. Ares turned. Elira, I'm the only one whose magic isn't wholly elemental. It's gift-born and soul-touched. I can unweave it. Cain hesitated. You're not a weapon. Elira smiled, eyes gleaming. No, I'm the fire they didn't see coming. She stepped into the rune circle, pain seizing her immediately. Blue frost climbed her limbs. Her scream echoed, but she held. Her magic surged, not destructive, but restorative. The rune shattered. Elira collapsed. Cain caught her. She's breathing, he said. Ares looked up as the last stillborn fell. It's done, back at Blood Lake. A hush fell over the newly built Concord chambers. Elira recovered slowly, her flame dimmer but steady. Nail stayed by her side, cataloguing residual, spiritual energy left behind from the broken rune. It's gone. Spherin's reach is over. Is it? Riker asked from the doorway. What if another cult rises? What if another witch thinks they can try again? Tobias folded his arms. Then we do what we did here. We stand united. We don't wait. Ares stepped into the room, cloak trailing snow behind her. We create a guardian class, she said. An independent force that answers not to one pack but to the Concord. Cain followed her in. Rogues, gifted, hybrids. Anyone who proves loyalty. Nail looked up. You're talking about a pack of the flame. Ares nodded slowly. Riker smirked. You naming yourself Alpha of that too? Ares raised an eyebrow. No. Tobias will. The room went quiet. Tobias blinked. Me, you've led with restraint. You've judged without ego. And you've walked in more blood than most of us. You know redemption. Cain clapped his shoulder. We trust you. Tobias swallowed hard. Then I won't let you down. A week later, wolves from every corner of the land gathered once more at the summit grounds. A new structure now stood behind the old amphitheater aflame tower, inscribed with the names of those lost to frost, to blood, to war. Cain stood before the crowd, flanked by Ares and the other Concord leaders. Tonight, he said, we light this flame not as rulers, but as kin. Ares added, this world was nearly torn apart, not by monsters, but by silence, secrecy, separation. We vow now never again. Tobias stepped forward, dressed in black armor, marked with the new sigil of the pack of the flame, a wolf rising through fire and ash. I will train them, he said, not just to fight, but to guard peace. Illyra beside him raised her hands and summoned a pure white flame, casting it into the brazier at the tower's peak. Light flared, wolves howled, and for the first time in generations, the entire valley howled as one. Cain turned to Ares. Did we do it? She smiled. We started it. The summit grounds were quiet now. The flame tower burned steadily, casting golden light on the stone path leading into the heart of the Concord compound. Cain stood before it, alone, staring up at the flickering symbol of what he and Ares had bled to build. Footsteps behind him. Ares, I thought I'd find you here. Cain didn't turn. This place has changed everything. She stepped beside him, arms crossed. You've changed. He finally looked at her. Have I? You used to be feared. Now they follow you out of choice. Loyalty, not fear. He studied her face. And you, would you still choose me? She smirked. You idiot. I never stopped choosing you. He exhaled slowly. I've made my decision. Tomorrow I step down as Alpha. Ares blinked. Cain. I'm tired, Ares. Not of leading, but of being expected to lead through war. The Concord doesn't need an Alpha who only knows how to fight. She reached for his hand. Then, what do we become? He smiled faintly. Ourselves, no titles, no thrones, just mates. Ares leaned her head against his shoulder. Then let the next generation rise. The hall was packed when Cain stood to announce his resignation. Every Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and representative from the pack of the flame was present. Nails stood with Illyra at the western arch. Riker flanked the entrance. Tobias stood tall, already wearing the black crest of the flame. Cain raised his voice, clear and sure. I was born in blood, trained to conquer, raised to command. But today, I step down not because I've failed, but because we've succeeded. He turned, gesturing toward Tobias. You don't need warbred leaders anymore. You need torchbearers. And the first of those stands here today. Tobias bowed his head. Illyra stepped forward, lighting a ceremonial torch with a pure white flame, handing it to Tobias. As he accepted it, murmurs broke into cheers. One by one, the Alpha stepped forward, not to challenge, but to swear fealty to the Concord Charter. Vesa, Marek, Doran of Ashmark. Even the stubborn twins of Hollowstream. Areas stood off to the side, watching it all unfold. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope for peace that might last. The moon was full. Ares sat on the edge of the cliffs outside Blood Lake, legs dangling over the ledge, breeze in her hair. Beside her, Illyra twirled a small flame between her fingers. You think it'll hold? Illyra asked softly. The Concord. Illyra nodded. Ares shrugged. Nothing's unbreakable, but it's stronger than anything we've ever had. Illyra looked at her. You didn't step forward today. I wasn't meant to. You built this. I bled for it, Ares corrected. But this world needs balance now, not vengeance. I've done my part. They fell into silence for a few moments. Then Illyra spoke again. Nail asked me to go with him. He's rebuilding the Druid Circle. He wants me to help teach, and I said yes. Ares smiled faintly. You're going to be a hell of a teacher. Illyra laughed. I'm going to set half the forest on fire. They sat together until the stars blinked into existence. For once, There was no war to prepare for, no prophecy, just quiet in the barracks of the Flame Guard. Riker paced. His armor had been cleaned, his sword sharpened, but something inside him still fidgeted. Tobias entered, shutting the door behind him. "You haven't accepted the command yet," Tobias said. "I'm not a politician. I'm not asking you to be. I need someone who knows battle, someone the others trust." Riker shook his head. "You want me to be Beta of the Flame?" Tobias nodded. "You already are, unofficially." Riker looked at the window. Outside, young wolves trained in the field. Some bore rogue markings. Others carried mixed blood. "I used to think I had to carry Yarek's name. You don't, I know. That's why I can finally say yes." He turned back to Tobias and extended his hand. "Beta Riker, at your service." Tobias grinned and shook it. "Let's build something that doesn't need to be burned down to be reborn." Riker chuckled. "For the first time, I think we can." The final gathering was held on a high hill, overlooking the lakes and lands now united under one banner. Ares and Cain stood together. No longer Alpha and Gamma, but still bound in soul. Nail and Alira prepared to depart to the new circle. Riker led a line of Flame Guard initiates through a sparring demonstration. Tobias addressed the gathering with confidence. No longer the guilt-ridden heir of a fallen pack, but the leader of a peacekeeping force, founded on justice and inclusion. As twilight fell, Cain raised his voice one last time. "Let this be remembered, not as the end of an age, but the beginning of one, where no wolf stands alone." Ares added, "Where gifted and giftless walk together, where love isn't a weakness, and where the moon doesn't only light our wars but our peace." They turned to face the sky. The full moon rose high and silver, its reflection clean in Blood Lake. And this time, when Ares howled, the sound was not lonely. It was joined by hundreds and echoed forever.